Hello. Got things to do. Hurry up, bitch. I'm gonna go at my own pace. If you have things to do, that's your fucking problem. Respectfully. Okay, you watch the video when it comes out, man. There's one thing I hate is when you try to rush me. No, 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 no. This is a live stream, okay? You want my time. If you want to fast forward, wait for the video. Anyways, I'm just trying to figure out how to attach this. Which is like a device that electrocutes me so my head hurts less because I don't really feel great. Which is why I was taking a little bit longer because they changed how it works. But it's the same like mechanism. It's just like now they used to have it where like you would need to like get rid of it every time. Like you would have to like throw it out. And I was like, that's fucking stupid. So finally they have it where you don't need to do that, which I'm like, thank God, that makes so much more sense. And you can actually like charge it. Why do I feel like this is like not as big as the band normally is? Anyways, I need to attach this and then we can get started. I might need to use the extender piece actually. Yeah, I definitely do. Damn, bro. Normally I don't have to. Anyways, how y'all doing? I'm playing my classic Japanese playlist. I see a shower. You have the same thing? You have a Narivio device too? Are you like chronically ill? Like what's going on? My condolences. Yeah, if you're on YouTube, you can't hear the music. Is this too long now? Bro, are you fucking serious? Here, let me just remove this. Why am I making this harder on myself? Yeah, if you're on YouTube, you can't hear the music. You just hear nothing because YouTube has copyright. That's strict. How do I... I'm gonna tweak. Like, why do I kind of hate this more than the other one? Wait. Got it. Okay. That feels tight enough. For headaches? Well, technically, yes. It's for nerve pain for me. That's what vibrating muscle and blood. No, that's not how this works. This works kind of differently. I mean, I guess it still does, but not the same. They have devices that electrocute you that are for that, but this is not that. Damn, this device is way stronger than the other ones. Holy shit. How much longer? I don't know, but normally I go with like 65 out of 100. Like right now I'm capping out at like 50. I have a bad asthma attack and I tore a tailbone ligament. How are those related, bro? Are you just like saying shit? That's why I follow you. Have I been? I've been okay. I haven't seen this dude in 3 years and I got an anime haircut. Bitch. Y'all bitch about my last haircut. You bitch about my new haircut. How about you look in the mirror and bitch about your ugly self? I bitch. Fuck. Not my fault. My fault. My fault. So you heard it on the floor? I absolutely did because my floors are clean, unlike yours. Dusty, crusty, musty. I went down the wrong pipe. Your Saturday, I feel like absolute dog shit. I'm not gonna lie. That's why. Don't test me. But I always have a little bit of it too. Let's be honest. Your haircut sounds better. It looks good. Well, thank you. $70% like the normal 50%. Okay, well, maybe. I don't know why I haven't been feeling good. Today I woke up. Well, today I was gonna get a massage because I didn't feel good and I had it scheduled for like a week. And then I showed up to the place and they were like, yeah, so you can't today. The person had like they're out sick. I was like, bitch, that's why I'm here. So it's like, now we both fucked up. Like, damn. First time I make a live stream, I have lots of pain, crying. I hope you feel better. You can hear like weeks ago. Why is everyone mentioning now? Well, there are some people that like don't watch you that often. Like they'll watch like maybe once a month. So like they'll come in and be like, oh shit, new haircut. Who this? But like if people still coming in 3 months in, I'm like, bro, lock in. Where have you been? A year later, like, oh my god, W haircut. No, but unironically, there's gonna be some ditzy motherfucker that does that shit. I swear to God, there is 100%. Where have you been? What's up, sir? How are y'all doing? Hopefully better than me. Yeah, I don't feel good today. I don't know what's going on. There's like people like, you're not a VTuber anymore. No, people still come in and say that. Like, unironically. Pods and hours are a pain in the butt. Yeah, I don't know why everyone with EDS also just has pods. Like, I don't understand the connection. Like, you don't just have, if you have EDS, you have pods. You can have pods without EDS, but if you have EDS, you have pods. And I don't know why. So yeah, how much advice you want to call me live? No, you're good. You're good. I appreciate it. I'm just saying there are some people that will come in and be like, you're not a VTuber, and it's literally been like 3 years. Like actually, like I think like it has been. I think it's like 3 years, like recently, kind of actually, like as of like a couple of days ago. Or no, maybe it's been 2. It's been 2, right? I left in 2024. Been that long already. I'm surprised I still have a career. Not gonna lie. What time is it? It's like 6. I'm in Central Time. Why aren't you blue anymore? Is that a pull-out couch? Yes. Yes. You're like one of the few YouTubers I can watch without getting bored. Well, I appreciate it. You're not proper anymore. I don't even know. I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. I'm not gonna lie. I actually feel like, do you already watch hearing? No, I'm warming up. I'll start soon. I don't even know what like I would categorize myself as as a content creator anymore. Like, I'm not gonna lie. I feel kind of lost. I'm like, what am I doing? I have like an extra channel where I just kind of yap about like whatever niche internet drama or true crime is funny to me, and then my main channel is like funny, and then my live streams is like, who knows? Like, I literally do whatever. No, because the other day I had a meeting, like with a sponsorship company, because I'm trying to find one, and they were like what type of content do you make? And I was like, they're like, because we can't really tell. I was like, oh. I was like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't. Like, I don't know. I kind of feel like I do like a little bit of everything. Except like gaming. I don't really game as much. Writing videos. Yeah, I feel like I'm a YouTuber that just goes live. It's kind of my thing. Would you game? I mean, I do game. I just don't do it on YouTube. Body cam, drama, VODs, you name it, Quinn did it. But it's like, I feel like I need to like pick a lane and stick to it. I don't know. I don't know. My most successful content is my YouTube stuff. No, I like the variety. I like low-key want to make like a third. Okay, yo, I know y'all are gonna be like, what the fuck? I want to make another channel where I post like live stream clips of funny. You know how my extra channel used to be clips of my stream of like stories and random stuff, and then like eventually like it just pivoted to like what it is now. Like, I kind of want to make a new channel to like start doing that again. But I also don't know if I have the time. So like shorts, no. Just change it back. You doing too much? No. I can't. My extra channel performs too well for me to like change it back. I'm sticking to this. Or like do like viewer involved stuff with that clips on like a clips channel. You know? This has TikToks, but sometimes they're like 20-minute stories. Like the cigar story, like stuff like that. It's like, I'm not really, I can't really make that a TikTok. Why does that go on extras then? Okay, I'm gonna teach you something about YouTube. Elite ball knowledge. YouTube likes consistency. So if you make a video that doesn't perform well, one that does perform well, a video that doesn't perform well, a video that does perform well, they just stop promoting all your videos overall because they don't really know where to place you and what audience to recommend your content to. So as much as I appreciate your suggestion, you are in fact incorrect. Okay, I only even have 2 channels I use. I'm acting like I have a bunch or 3. I also kind of want to do some viewers involved stuff again, but like not a ton. But I want to do like a weekly video with that as well. I don't know. I kind of miss the viewer involved stuff too. But I don't really have like, I don't have the time to do that. Like, I don't really have the time for that. Maybe do like once a month. I was thinking I would do like viewer involved stuff and like live stream clips of like funny stories or random other stuff on like a clips channel. Because I feel like that is John. Because that's like me personality stuff, but it's kind of random. I haven't watched your first Life is Strange Junior video yet, but do you like it much? I'm gonna be honest. I think it's the worst game they've released in the series. Respectfully. It was kind of buns. I was very disappointed. I don't remember what's the thing around your arm. It electrocutes me for nerve pain. It's called a Nerivio. Like pain meds don't work for your head pain. I really recommend it. Are you being honest? Yeah, don't fucking buy that shit. It's not worth it. It's really not. Like, in all the loose ends that it left in like the previous game, they didn't really explain either. It was just like, it was like, what the fuck is going on? Did it have side effects? Not really. I don't know. So I was watching some of my Instagram reels and I missed when I was doing more like funny, goofy shit on stream. I feel like now it's like funny, goofy, but it's like commentary, which isn't bad. I don't know, man. My problem is like, I want to do everything and have it be successful, but like, that's not really possible. You kind of have to like stick to something until you're successful enough to branch out. Which I know I can do a bunch of different type of content, so I'm not like, I'm fine in that regard. I think my weakest segment is definitely gaming though. Like I'm not good at, I mean, I did that full time for like 2 years though. But unironically, I think it's my worst content, bro. I actually do. I actually do think it's my worst content. Spins will have done topics like watching you. I feel overall you're good at doing bantering and commentary on the fly as a creator, but yeah, I agree. It's hard to find jack of all trades, progress as a creator. Yeah. Well, I think I'm good with bantering and back and forth stuff too. I also think my main channel videos recently have been good. I don't know. What's y'all's opinion on those? Pepino said something to me when he was editing. He was like, yeah, I like the new format. I just missed some of the banter stuff. And I was like, yeah, I don't really know how to implement that. You'll tell you stick niche. I mean, I could. I mean, the current niche on my extra channel, I am sticking to be honest. But I actually enjoy it. I've always liked human behavior commentary stuff. And I'm very opinionated, so it like works. I like the understand about agreeing to bounce off of the funny. I agree too, but I just think if the person I'm bouncing off of sucks, it's not funny either. It like makes it worse. Like when we're stop, I agree. Yeah, we're still about something funnier. No, your opinion on True Crime and everything. Okay, I'm always like really scared, guys. This is my fear, unironically. We'll get into the stuff after this. I'm so scared, like I'm gonna like have a video on my main channel or like my main channel start to blow up, and then like people are gonna go through my true crime content and like I'm gonna say shit that's gonna piss them off. Because I think like my main channel content is more like hee hee. You know, and then this is more like, all right, so this bitch cut up a body. And then like, I don't know. I feel like I'm not super careful with what I say. Like I'm very like, you know, I'm very like, I'm just kind of like a person. But my biggest audience is the true crime and body cam and like commentary stuff currently. So It makes you want to try those interviewer shows. I do want to do that too. My social anxiety is so bad. Extra sounds best. It feels unfiltered. Yeah, I think people do like my unfiltered stuff. Some of you said that I can't remember would be cancelable if it's still possible. You're just very out there. I don't know how to take that. What does that mean? You're just very out there. You have your outro back then, bro. I know, but like that doesn't like I don't really like that advice is out of my brain now. Reversing a more realistic take. Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I'm worried I'm too mean. I think what's wrong with you is they type before they listen. That is true. Sometimes I'll have people type a whole essay in the comment section and then what they're bitching about, I literally said like a minute later. Like dead ass. I think he doesn't sugarcoat things, so it comes off as insensitive. I mean, yeah, but I feel like that is just kind of how I am. I don't really feel like I sugarcoat things on my main channel either. It's just I don't touch on a series of stuff. But I make fucked up jokes over there too. Like I was talking about like killing myself and shit like in my main channel video. My most recent 2 main channel videos. Like I'm not gonna lie. Like I mean, I'm not much better over there. It's just like the format it's a little more palatable. I mean, if someone kills someone, you can be as mean as you want. Oh, I agree. Yo, Painbot, thank you for the membership. Appreciate you. Welcome to the bites. Yo, no, because, okay, I don't feel mean when I do true crime stuff. I feel mean when I do, like, cover, like, TikTok drama. Like, the most recent video, I'm like, damn, was I too mean to that bitch? I feel like I did kind of defend her, though. I was like, I don't really think she's a horrible person. I just think this looks bad. It's not like scared you're gonna read one of my jokes when I'm watching your crime. I'm gonna get in trouble, bro. Sometimes your jokes are crazy though. Like sometimes I be ignoring your shit because I'm like that's fucking insane. The one video about the girl cheating with her cousin in the comments were flaming you. I feel like most people were agreeing with me though. I just think that was like, I mean, people are gonna disagree with you when you give your opinions. I think that was more like some people type before they watch, and also I think. Like some people love to be like someone calls himself a victim and then like or like says they were manipulated and now anything they do is like not their fault, and that's how the person was acting, and I was like that's not right. But then people will hear the word manipulation like, well, they were manipulated, so like it's like no, that doesn't remove your part or your willing participation after the fact. You have really good kind of at least you handle that recent video really well. I agree. Like, I just don't think I word it very like softly is my thing. Like my point and someone else's point could be the same, but the way I'm gonna say it is gonna be like a little more jarring if you're used to people saying it in a very like beat around the bush, let's fluff this up way. I'm just like, this bitch is bugging. And someone's like, I disagree with this opinion. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's me versus other people. I'd be like, this bitch is bugging. This is some dumbass shit. What the fuck are we doing? I really disagree with her opinion here. I think, you know, this is a very inconsiderate thing. I feel like she's being irrational. But this bitch bugging, like, it means the same thing. It's just the way I speak is a little less soft. Yeah, I agree. There's a whole comment thread just re-explaining what you already touched on as if you didn't say that. Yes, that was great. That happens so much to me, though. I actually think that's like the number one. Every time people do bitch in the comments, it is that a lot of the time. They're complaining about something before they finished my, like, statement about it. Because what I do is I state my opinion and then I explain it. which is backwards from what a lot of people do. Well, they'll explain it and build up to their final opinion. Like I'll say the thesis statement and then give you an example. Other people will kind of talk up and then end with the thesis statement, which is better if you want people to like kind of ease into it. I just don't formulate my opinions like that in my brain. So I just can't do that. That's why your insecurities here as a human, but to me are usually too kind to some of these people. It feels real instead of scripted. Yeah, I think a lot of people like that about me too. I don't know, man. It's a double-edged sword. People really appreciate that about me, but also if you're used to people being more soft-spoken and less direct, it can be jarring. But I kind of prefer my audience being used to the way I talk anyways. I just think me coming from my old company, like really, it gave me a lot of anxiety about the way I speak about things to this day, because I think like I'm wording things too harshly or whatever. I don't know. All right, definitely think I overthink stuff now. I was thinking the psychology thing, people tend to focus on the last thing that's said. So if having the point at the start makes it easier to miss for people who aren't paying attention. I think honesty has always been your charm. I know. It has. I know. But it's like I said, it's a double-edged sword. Good morning. Welcome, Athena. The company was definitely bugging out. I don't really think it was the company, it was the fan base. Like someone tweeted literally in that company, like happy men's mental health month, and like people had a hissy fit on Twitter because they're like, how dare you invalidate LGBTQ pride? I was like, bro, what? Like you acting like gay people can't be men. Like what are we talking? Like I was like, it was the most insane shit to me. That's what I was used to. Okay, that level of like, what the fuck? Loki just say things that I think usually, but I wouldn't say out loud. Yes, that is also a lot of a consensus that I get from people. People are like, damn, you say exactly what I'm thinking, but wouldn't have the balls to say. Truly, that is, I think behind the scenes in the creator scene from other like big YouTubers, that is the thing I hear the most. It's like, yeah, you just say what the fuck you think. And like, it's very refreshing. And I actually really appreciate it. And also you'll say shit that I would be scared to say, but I am thinking the exact same way. That's what I always hear from people. And I'm like, damn, okay. It's like I'm not PR trained, but like I'm not a piece of shit, so it doesn't like bite me in the ass, if that makes sense. At least I don't think I am. I don't know. Maybe I am. They got a new ball like this. Well, Hikaru Utada is like the GOAT. Is this from Kingdom Hearts? Bitch, I didn't even know that shit. I'm gonna give you a Bluetooth handshake. You didn't know? No. I just like Hikaru Utada. Let me be real. Sometimes you be an asshole, but it's not like you're laughing at people because they go to the grocery store. Yes, I agree. I think you're more of a tough love person. Well, yes. Well, yes. It's like that fucking Tokyo Tony. Well, yes. Okay, anyways, let me pull up some of the tweets of the reports that I found from news articles, and then we'll get started. Just so I have everything. when you walk away. Please. Simple and sweet is the way that you're making me feel tonight. All right, I have everything pulled up for now. Have I been on stream? Once. What's your opinion on the David situation? Well, you about to hear that shit. That's the point of the stream. Give me a second. Okay, I don't know really what order this stuff came out in, so I'm just gonna kind of go through everything, and then like when I'm editing my YouTube video, I'll arrange this in a way that like makes more sense. So if y'all are like, this seems kind of random, bitch, I don't really fully know what the fuck is happening because they're not allowing you, or okay, in the David case, they aren't allowing there to be cameras or any recordings in the actual courtroom. So all the reports coming out are from reporters that sat in during the hearing. So the information is kind of scattered and not really streamlined, and there's not like a court video that I can directly watch and react to with you guys. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to compile as much information from the hearing as possible that I have found on the internet and break it down with you guys. Sound good? YouTuber Chapman Ross said brilliant coverage. I can look into it. I just don't want I haven't seen anyone covering services because I was waiting for your react, so my eyes are itchy for content. I just don't want to watch another YouTuber give like a fuck ton of commentary on what happened, because I want to do that myself, if that makes sense. But yeah, maybe I should like dedicate more time in the future to looking through stuff if this seems crazy erratic, but we'll see. For now, we'll see. Have I already watched the video? No, we're about to. Okay, I'm gonna go pee real quick and then we're gonna start. Give me 1 second. Okay. All right. One more thing to pull up. Actually, I'll do that later. Okay. Okay. All right, I'm ready. Okay, if you guys have not been keeping up with the David case, today we're going to go through a couple of updates on a lot of the new stuff that came out. There has been a ton of info. So recently, David had a hearing and a ton of disturbing evidence, first-person accounts, like text messages, plane tickets, all sorts of crazy stuff came out and came to fruition during this hearing to see if it was going to go to trial, which listen, it is. Okay, like let's keep it a buck. It is going to trial, but they just have to do the formalities. They have to do the hearing. Like there's a order of operations for this sort of thing, but there is 100% enough evidence for this to go to trial. So I'm going to give you guys, I guess, the TLDR of how we got to this point. So for those of you that don't know, Jason, bitch. For those of you that don't know, David, or D4vd, is a popular singer that blew up on TikTok and streaming. That blew up on TikTok a couple of years ago. He's a pretty young guy. He's like in his early 20s. And how long ago was this? A year ago, his Tesla, his car, was impounded at an impound lot when he was on tour performing shows. And inside of his impounded Tesla, they found the dead body of Celeste Rivas, who at the time I think was 13, maybe 14, or just turned 14, who was 13, or how old was Celeste actually? How old was Celeste when she died? I think she was 14, right? Yeah, she was 14. Okay. Yeah, they found the body of Celeste Rivas, who was 14, in the back of David's Tesla, dismembered. Celeste Rivas was David's girlfriend. Mind you, she was 14 when she died. She had been dating and knew David for years at this point, and David was a fully grown adult. So he was 20, he was 20 when they found the body of a 14-year-old in his car. So not only did he murder someone, he's also a predator and a PDF file. Now, at the time, a lot of people thought that David didn't kill Celeste, and the people didn't even know it was Celeste's body when this initially came out. They just knew dead girl in his Tesla. A lot of people were like, oh, someone stole his car and put the body there. It wasn't him. A lot of people were defending him, or like, well, why would he put a dead body in his own car? Some people thought he got set up by his friends, his label, someone he maybe did business with, or someone that was trying to sabotage him. Because he was on tour when the body was found, so the timing didn't make a lot of sense. However, the internet did what the internet does, and they went sleuthing. And they found live stream clips, Discord messages, VODs, videos, Instagram posts about this girl, Celeste, and her relationship with David. And it had come out that David had been basically talking to and or grooming Celeste ever since she was like 12, 11. Like she was very, very young when her and David initially met. And he would talk about her in his Discord server. There was a live stream clip or VOD of them kind of talking together where she basically says her age, and he kind of is like, oh, let's delete the clip. And he would post her on Instagram all the time, but he would cover her face. And people also found out that this girl Celeste had been missing for about a year, and her parents reported her missing, and no one knew where she was for the past year. And what was she doing? She was living with David, a grown man, when she was 14, a 20-year-old, right? So all this blew up, and it's taken from that point about a year for prosecutors and and detectives to build a case against David. And a month or two ago, they came out during I think it was like I don't know what the correct term is, so I'm not even going to attempt to say it. What was it called? I don't know. Was it an arraignment? It might have been his arraignment. Yeah. during his arraignment where they read what he was being charged with, and he was getting charged with like having a relationship with an underage minor, tampering with an active investigation involving an underage minor, murder, and a lot of other stuff. And the police detectives came out and said they had 40 terabytes of evidence on David for this case. Now that we're all caught up. Oh, also, I want to say David also had a long history of being involved in gore and really weird internet communities that are not good. Like, he really liked consuming gore. He talked about it. He had a lot of like developmental problems, or didn't like get properly socialized growing up, and kind of fell into these weird rabbit holes on the internet that kind of led to his mental decay, in my opinion. I did a video where someone talks about that and kind of gave my opinion on it as well, if you want to watch that. But that's kind of a separate thing. That's just kind of giving you like the background on like maybe how his brain got to this point. But we're up to date now. Okay. A couple of days ago, they had a hearing where they displayed some of the evidence. And for those of you that don't know what a hearing is, it's basically where you present information to a judge to determine if there's enough evidence to take it to a trial. Spoiler alert, there definitely is, but it's just a formal process they have to do. And some of the evidence that came out is absolutely jarring and crazy. They didn't allow any cameras, recordings, or any sort of media in the courtroom that was actively like broadcasting or recording what was happening. So reporters had to go in there and kind of write their own notes and give secondhand accounts and report on the information later, which is why a lot of the information is kind of scattered and everywhere. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through it as best as I can and try to kind of organize it into a format where it's easily digestible and you can kind of get a picture of what's going on. I think her parents didn't care. I mean, I agree. I think Celeste's parents knew what was going on to some extent. There's no way they didn't. Okay, let me pull up some of these. Okay. So there have been a lot of tweets and reports going around. So we're going to go through some of these, and then we're going to watch an actual video where reporters that were inside of the courtroom talk about what happened. So okay, so first and foremost, not only was David in a relationship with a minor, he also impregnated her and had an abortion. So there was text exchange between David and Celeste that accused of killing her shortly after she had an abortion. I think a year after she had an abortion. So mind you, if she was 14 when she died, David impregnated her at 19 when she was a 13-year-old. Disgusting. Texts between singer David and Celeste Rivas Hernandez, shown in court Friday, indicate that she had gotten pregnant at age 13 and had an abortion more than a year before she was killed. In one exchange in early January of 2024, David Burke apologizes for putting her through this. "It's okay," she said in a text. "Neither of us are capable of watching and taking care of a baby. It's for the best, no?" He later apologizes again before asking if it's his, and she replies, "Of course it's yours, David." Testimony came during a preliminary hearing where the judge will decide if Burke should go to trial on the Rivas Hernandez killing. Prosecutors are seeking to prove that David began sexually abusing Celeste Rivas Hernandez when she was 13 and he was 18, then stabbed her to death when she threatened to reveal their long sexual history and crater a career that had earned him millions. They allege he dismembered her body in a garage. A police analyst testified in the preliminary hearing that samples pulled from apparent bloodstains there matched Rivas's DNA. Her body was discovered in the trunk of a Tesla that had been towed from the Hollywood Hills shortly, like close to David's house, by the way, in September, nearly 5 months after authorities said she was killed. The Tesla was registered to David. David had pleaded not guilty to murder, sexual abuse of a child, and mutilation of a body, and his lawyer said he is innocent. Prosecutors spent Friday afternoon detailing the nature of the relationship between Burke and Rivas Hernandez. Photos of the two of them kissing and lying in bed were shown in court. The pictures showed that she had David tattooed in red ink on a finger, one that had been cut off where her body was found. Then Los Angeles police detective described one by one more than 36 photos of the two of them that could not be shown in court because they depicted illicit abuse. Basically, CSAM. Rivas Hernandez was 13 and 14 in the photos. Rivas Hernandez's mother began crying and her father looked down as the detective began describing the images. Deputy District Attorney Beth Silverman came over to confront the mother, Mercedes Martinez, and the couple got up and left the courtroom. The images recovered from his iPhone were seized during a search of his home. The text message conversations taken from his iCloud account often discussed contraception and pregnancy. In early January 2024, they discussed the abortion. In a text conversation months later, she says she regretted that she took an innocent life of a baby. She asked Burke if anyone knew if they had, and he replied, "Nope, I want to keep it that way until we're married." Rivas Hernandez turned 14 in September of 2024 and soon after traveled with Burke to London and Texas to meet his family. So David's family knew that he was dating a 14-year-old. And what makes this more sinister, in my opinion, if he said, "I want to keep it that way until we're married," in the US, in certain states, I don't know if it's in every state, if a adult, aka Celeste's parents, were to sign off on her legally marrying David as a child, David can now have a relationship with her legally. Like, if your parents as a child marry you off to a grown adult, legally they are allowed to do so. And the reason it's allowed in certain laws here is because we have, in the US, we have freedom of religion, and a lot of some religions or religious beliefs or certain cultures, marrying children to adults is more normal. I'm not saying it's right, I don't agree with that, but I'm saying, like, in some parts of the world, like, they unironically do that and it's pretty common, which is disgusting. But because in the US we try to respect everyone's beliefs, it is why it is kind of allowed in a lot of these laws. So that's why it's allowed here, which I think it should be overruled. I think, I'm sorry, religious beliefs or not, if you are trying to introspectively explain to me how God, Allah, Buddha, whatever the is telling you that you as a grown-ass person have the right to marry a child, I hope God, Allah, Buddha, or whatever the sends your ass to hell, purgatory, you don't get enlightened, whatever the punishment is for you. I hope, okay, I hope you get reincarnated as a goddamn ant and get stepped on by a 2-year-old child. All right, so a child can abuse you back, you sick anyways. In one text in November 2024, Celeste says, "I literally had with you for almost a year straight." He tells her she's acting like it's their first breakup when it's their 8th. The detective returns to the stand Monday for the 5th and likely final day of the preliminary hearing. Earlier in the day, the doctor who performed the autopsy on Celeste gave difficult details of her death. Much of what Dr. Grant, the medical examiner, said on the stand was already known. She had been killed by 2 sharp force wounds to her upper body. The details of what but the details he shared of the autopsy showed and telling you what it was were unable to determine. Wait, hold on. The details he shared of what the autopsy showed and telling me what it was unable to determine because of how degraded her body was when it was found. So it was very decayed by the time they found it. They found it a bit late. Were part of what made Friday's proceedings perhaps the most difficult so far. Ho testified that he could not say when the death occurred, one of many challenges brought on by the body's degradation. It's extremely difficult to tell. He said that she had been dead for at least weeks, later adding that it could have been months. Authorities say Burke sent a car to pick up Rivas Hernandez on April 23rd, 2025 from her hometown of Lake Ellis Shore, California, some 80 miles outside of Los Angeles. They exchanged text messages until she arrived at his home, after which her phone went dead. Her body was found in the trunk of the Tesla registered to David Burke on September 8th, 2025, the day after she would have turned 15. She didn't make it to her 15th birthday, correct? Silverman asked. Correct, Ho replied. Ho said there were many skin defects that could have been post-mortem, but two he identified as potential stab wounds had related internal trauma. One wound on the abdomen penetrated her liver. Another on the left chest damaged her ribs. So he stabbed her to death, and then he dismembered her body. And this is a picture of the autopsy reports where you can see where they pointed out potential stab wounds and all sorts of stuff, and the medical examiner signed off on it. I wonder if I should read this. Unless this is the same. No, this is a different one. He testified that toxicology tests done on her liver because no blood was available initially showed positives for benzodiazepines, medications typically used for anxiety, and methamphetamine. He said with further testing, the benzodiazepine was negative. The methamphetamine was inconclusive. As a result, he said, I cannot say it played a role in her death. In the toxicology report, there was no information to support an overdose death, correct? The medical examiner said they were correct. Bendarowski asked if it helps if an autopsy examination to talk to the friends and family of the deceased about their life, if they had a mental health issue, were suicidal, were frequent drug users, or were violent. Ho answered potentially to each of those, but said there was no such conversations in this case. Okay, let's go through some of the autopsy reports a bit more. Let me see if there's anything new in here. Ho testified that he conducted the autopsy alongside trainee Dr. Ansel Nam, who was serving as the supervising medical examiner. The two verbally discussed their observations during the examination while notes were recorded on coroner diagrams. Photographs and diagrams were also created as a part of the autopsy. Dr. Ho said the primary observations were marked decomposition and trauma consistent with dismemberment. Regarding the upper extremities, Dr. Ho testified there was one dismemberment site on each arm. The lower body also showed two cut sides on each side. He described the cut surfaces as generally smooth, but noted tiny blue fragments embedded within the cut surfaces. The fragments were too small for him to identify, so he deferred that analysis to criminologists. Larger fragments were collected and booked into evidence. So they dismembered both of their arms. The lower body had two cuts on each side, and that's crazy. Dr. O testified that the dismemberment extended through the bone, not just soft tissue. So like maybe a chainsaw or something. Asked what tools and medical examiners use to cut through tissue and bone during autopsies, Dr. O said scalpels and knives are used for soft tissue, while organs and white power tools such as circular bone saws and rib cutters for ribs are used to cut through the bone because of its density. It seems like Silverman was highlighting that power tools are the only way to get through the bone. So basically they're assuming like they used a saw or something to get through her bone. Regarding the lower extremities, Dr. O testified that there were two areas that had been cut. Referring to an autopsy diagram, Dr. O testified each leg showed two dismemberment sites, one around the upper thigh and below the knee. So that she cut up each leg into two parts, right at the thigh and right below the knee, and cut off both of her arms with like a chainsaw or something, because it wasn't just the soft tissue, it went through the bone. What the like, not only did he murder this poor girl, he groomed her, impregnated her, and then killed her. Although the diagrams are not drawn to scale, he noted the cut on the right thigh was lower than the cut on the left thigh, meaning the cuts occurred at different positions on each leg. The prosecutor, Beth Silverman, asked whether the patterns were consistent with using a tool to dismember one leg at a time rather than making one straight cut across both legs. Dr. Ho responded, potentially. They asked whether, based on his experience in the appearance of the dismemberment, it looked consistent with the use of a power saw. Dr. Ho answered, potentially. So it's very hard for them to really know because the body had been decomposed for a while. And it was in a hot Tesla in LA heat. And if you're in the frunk of a Tesla in like 90 to 100 degree weather, that's like an oven. That's like an oven. So it's going to speed up the rate of decay because heat amplifies the rate of decay on most things. Bacteria grows a lot faster when it's warm. And even like it being in an enclosed space, like a trunk, the moisture would get trapped in there, which would also speed up the rate of decay. So the car kind of accelerated her body's decomposition to where it kind of makes it a little bit harder to pin down exactly what happened or what specifically was used to dismember the body or exactly how the death occurred because it had been so long before the body was found. Yo, Damian Flores, thank you for the 2 months. Thank you. Dr. O testified that in addition to the amputated arms, the left ring finger and the pinky ring finger had also been amputated. Those cut surfaces were likewise clean and smooth. He asked whether the finger amputations were consistent with sharp instruments such as a knife or a saw, and Dr. Ho answered yes. Dr. Ho confirmed autopsy diagram number 20 documented those observations. He also identified a tattoo on the medial side of Celeste's right index finger. Graphic photos of the right index finger and the amputated left ring and pinky fingers recovered from the Hollywood tow yard were shown on the screen, with multiple gaps in the gallery. Dr. Ho described clean-cut surfaces, brown liquid, and skin slippage consistent with decomposition. David Burke continued staring at the diagrams and graphic photos without any visible expression or reaction, which is very telling. I think a lot of times people love to conflate criminals' reactions to evidence in their own trial as like proof of them being guilty or not guilty or heartless or not heartless. I think people's reactions to things tend to be different. So I think that a lot of times that is like kind of projecting what you think your reaction would be onto people and what you would deem appropriate, but everyone's going to react differently. However, in this case, I think it is important because David had a long history when he was growing up on the internet of consuming gore content. He consumed so much of it. He had even stated publicly that he would watch it to desensitize himself to it. That was literally his own reasoning. He wanted to become desensitized to gore. And so he consumed it constantly. That's his own words. So him having no reaction to the dismembered body of his former lover that he killed and abused is really telling that he actually did consume this gore content and it did desensitize him to this. Because I think killing someone is one thing. Actively dismembering their body meticulously is another thing. Because if you're going to dismember a body and then put it all in the same place, what was the point of dismembering it? It's not like you're doing it to cover up evidence. It's not like you're doing it to make it harder for the body to be identified. If you're going to dismember a body and then place all of it in one location, you dismembered it for the love of the game or for the purpose of just doing it. Like, there was no need for him to do this to cover his tracks or to hide evidence because he dismembered the body and then placed it all in the same location. And a 14-year-old girl is not big enough where you would need to dismember a body to fit it in the front of a Tesla. On top of that, Teslas have trunks in the back he could have put the body in, and you could have contorted the body to fit it in the trunk. Like the need to dismember the body was very unnecessary given the way the body was dumped or like disposed of or it did not need to happen. So I think the fact that he had no reaction to the gore and there was so much of this being cut up is really telling that like part of him like wanted to do this, or this was something he either enjoyed or his brain had gotten so infatuated with the idea of doing this from watching all this gore that it made this part of the crime something he just wanted to do because it was not necessary. it was not necessary at all. If you're going to put all the pieces in one place, it doesn't make any sense. Like, it was not needed. You know what I'm saying? So I don't, unless he was planning to move the body and then burn it or something, and like the plane got interrupted. But the dismembering to cover up his crime was not needed. The only part of this dismemberment that would make sense to me is if they cut off the hands or the fingers, because they had tattoos that were matching. She had a David tattoo on her finger. She had a tattoo on her finger, and David had posted pictures with these tattoos on his Instagram with her kind of covering her face, because David posted pictures with Celeste on social media, but would often cover her face. And so, or kind of, one second. And would often cover her face. So did you mean to ban them or did you time them out? I don't even know what happened. Yeah, so that would make sense to me if you were trying to cover up the evidence or make it harder for the body to identify, or make it maybe remove your connection to the body. But the fact that he cut off the arms, the legs in two places, it's just very unnecessary for covering up his crime. So I think he did that because he wanted to, which just makes this even more sick. Like, it wasn't like, oh, I killed her, I need to cover it up. It's like, oh, I want to dismember this body. I want to experience this. Like, it's very, very sick and twisted the more you kind of think about it. Silverman displayed a full-body graphic autopsy photograph with Celeste's body on a metal table. Burke continued watching the screen without any visible reaction. Dr. Ho described the body as severely decomposed, discolored, with multiple dismemberment sites on the arms and legs. The left arm rested somewhere behind the body. He noted changes in skin color, skin slippage in areas where the skin had dried, explaining postmortem sun exposure can contribute to drying. Celeste's face showed partial skeletonization, with the left eye missing and significant liquefaction of soft tissue. There was still some black, short, curly hair. He documented multiple skin defects, including both dried areas and wet areas caused by liquidation of tissue breakdown, as well as insect activity, including small larvae. He explained that during decomposition, organs change colors, lose weight, and soften. Graphic photo of Celeste's discolored raw torso after it was removed from the Tesla. Burke continued staring at the screen without any visible reaction to Dr. Ho pointed out the skin defects on the right abdomen. Dr. Ho testified that there was a penetrating wound that traveled through the skin, through the diaphragm, into the liver, which he said was compatible with a sharp force injury. The wound measured approximately 1.5 inches in depth. Dr. Ho explained decomposition caused the liver to shrink and soften, making the wound track more difficult to measure. He said it could have been originally been deeper. Dr. Ho testified the wound traveled from front to back, consistent with Celeste being stabbed in the abdomen. Graphic photos shown of Celeste's open chest cavity during the autopsy showed the injury to the diaphragm and corresponding defect to the liver. So he might have stabbed her to death in the liver. Which is crazy. Another graphic photo showed that Dr. O described as a cortical disruption of the ribs. He testified it represented a penetrating chest injury, with the wound traveling through the soft skin, soft tissue, and into the chest cavity. Because of the condition of the remains, he said it was impossible to determine the wound's endpoint. So basically, they're assuming she was stabbed to death, but they cannot confirm or deny exactly how it happened because the body had been decomposing for so long in the heat. Like, it had been, like, they say weeks to like maybe a month or two. They said weeks to months. So they kind of can't really give like an ironclad explanation, and the medical examiner's job isn't to be in favor of the prosecution exactly. It's to report on exactly what they find with an unbiased lens. So they're not gonna assume or kind of put the idea out that they were stabbed to death if they can't 100% confirm it, because that's not their job. They have to be accurate. Ho also testified that the injury had chipped away part of the bone. Oh my God, confirming it was trauma-induced and estimated the wound penetrated at least 2 inches. He identified linear abrasions on the back of Celeste's right hand. And yeah, there's a bunch of blue plastic fragments they found in her body where her limbs were dismembered, and they're unsure what it was from. Now, the prosecutor, Silverman, posed a hypothetical question, basically stating if the victim had been placed in a blue inflatable pool after being killed to contain the blood while the body was dismembered with the chainsaw, would that scenario be consistent with the embedded plastic fragments? David's defense objective, saying the question lacked foundation, was leading, and Dr. Ho already said he did not know. The judge overruled the objection, and Dr. Ho responded with possibly. So basically, they're theorizing that maybe after she was murdered, he put her in like an inflatable pool or something to kind of contain the blood and chopped her body up. Once again, completely unnecessary given the way they dumped the body, because they chopped the body up and then put the entire thing in the exact same place. So it's not, like I said, it's not like he chopped the body to hide anything. Like he actually just did it to do it. Now, an inflatable pool with a chainsaw kind of doesn't make sense to me, because like I just feel like it would pop. But they also have like hard plastic pools that you can buy too, that aren't inflatable. So like there are many other ways. But I think whether or not it's an inflatable pool exactly, I do think there could have been some containment method that had blue plastic fragments in it that led to this, and that's probably the most likely thing. The only other thing in my mind that would make sense is some chainsaws have like a guard on top of them, or like around the edge of the chainsaw on the top side, so you don't cut yourself. And maybe the chainsaw he used had a blue guard, and fragments of that got into the body because of the pressure he was applying when trying to cut open the limbs. Maybe some of the chainsaw hit the top of the guard and kind of scraped pieces off. That's the only other thing in my brain that would make sense, which was my initial thoughts when this happened. I don't know if they touch on that in the case, but if they do find the chainsaw, I mean, they can quickly eliminate whether or not that was a factor. So my theory is it's either a chainsaw or like a pool or something to contain it. But they, like I said, they have like those hard shell blue pools too, for like the kiddie pools or whatever, that aren't inflatable. Dr. O then testified that the left chest injury was life-threatening, explaining it could have introduced air into the chest cavity, impairing breathing, and directly into the lung. He also testified the injury to the liver was independently life-threatening, as the damage to the organ can result in significant internal bleeding. So the medical examiner said the chest stab wound or the liver one could have killed her. And she had both. So he either stabbed her and let her kind of bleed out and die, or she died after the 2 wounds were like happened. They asked how long it would take someone to bleed to death from the chest injury. Dr. Ho said it would take minutes, though he could not be more specific because the exact time frame depends on numerous factors. When pressed whether it could take up to an hour, Dr. Ho replied he could not specifically say, only that it would occur within minutes. Noting there are many minutes within an hour, though. Then asked whether someone would likely die within an hour without medical treatment. Dr. Ho said that question was out of his area of expertise. The doctor then testified the average adult has about 5 liters of blood, but said a typical 14-year-old would have less, though he did not know the exact amount off the top of his head. Regarding Celeste's liver injury, Dr. Ho testified the resulting hemorrhaging likely could have been life-threatening within minutes, potentially extending up to an hour, depending on the circumstances. Silverman also asked again about the orthodontic hardware noted during the autopsy that he referred to as braces on Thursday. Dr. Ho testified that he observed wire bonded to the back of both upper and lower teeth, but he clarified, I'm not a dentist, so they thought she had braces, which I don't know if that's relevant. Yeah, these are basically the stab wounds. Right here is the one in the liver, here is the one in the chest cavity with the airways, and this is how they presumed that she was killed. And I think the reason they asked him if it could take hours for her to bleed out is I think the prosecution wants to highlight that Celeste probably suffered during the injuries, and making it sound like someone suffered for a longer period of time, I like, objectively, in my opinion, doesn't make the case any worse or better. But I think most people, the idea of prolonging someone's suffering sounds more cruel. And I think that that would benefit to the prosecution side during a jury trial, because jury rules on facts and emotion, not just facts. A bench trial, which is when just the judge determines what happens, is just evidence. So if you're going with a jury trial, which the accused or the defendant is the one that gets to choose whether it's a bench or a jury trial, not the prosecution. If you're going with a jury trial, the idea of prolonging someone's suffering would emotionally cause people to react and view David as more cruel, and would rule in the prosecution side. That's why I think they pointed that out, because whether she died in minutes or hours, it doesn't make the murder any better or worse. She was still killed. I do think personally dragging out someone's suffering is worse, in my personal opinion. But I think in terms of like facts wise, if we're being objective with just like facts, if this was a bench trial, the judge isn't going to care whether she died in 2 minutes or an hour. She's dead, right? That's what the charge is. It be taking longer doesn't add or detract from the validity of the murder charge. But for a bench or for a jury trial, it would sway the jury against him. That makes sense. So that's why I think it was highlighted. But I don't know for sure. I'm not, listen, I'm not a criminal defense attorney or a prosecutor. Okay, I just find this stuff interesting. So this was the wounds, and then this was basically the full report on the body on where it was dismembered. So it was here on the thighs, below the knees, the arms here. And then they talked about the facial decay, and then there's some defects here on the rib, abrasions on the hands, and then the fingers were cut here. These fingers were absent, and this one had the tattoo, which I don't know why he would cut these fingers and leave the tattoo if he posted that on his social media. But I think one of these maybe had the David one. And yeah, Dr. Ho and Dr. Nam have signed off on this. Like, this dude is a monster, bro. And then he had the gall to write music about wanting to kill people and her dying and like loving the feeling. Like, he's a very twisted person. Like, I don't really understand the motive behind like the music aspect of this, because he made the song about her dying, or like lyrics that kind of people were, I guess, I don't want to say conflating, but possibly conflating with the actual murder and comparing them. And some of the lyrics he stated kind of match up with what he ended up doing to Celeste later. So it's like, was this planned? Was this not? It just doesn't make sense. Like, the lyrics kind of pointed towards like this was something he had an inclination for, or how like he thinks love is going to end in death. He would talk about that a lot, that love would end in death. And I do think a lot of people gave it a pass because it seems like a metaphor to any rational person. I mean, a lot of musical artists have depicted death in their songs and their media, and it's normally a metaphor, like, oh, you know, when we broke up, that was the death of this relationship, or that was the death of this person. And it's like, it's not actually the death of the person, but in your life it is. So people assumed it was artistic. The problem is, after all of this, he might have just been being very, very like dead ass about it. And then this is even crazier. David posted the tweet decay approximately 7 days after Celeste Rivas's alleged death, around the time a human body typically begins to decompose. And my favorite comment about this is, how are you a pedo, murderer, and corny at the same time? Because, like, bro, how are you, like, pick a struggle, you piece of shit. Like, no, how are you a pedophile and a murderer, and now you corny on top of that? Now you corny on top of that. Like, come on. Like, Like, you just suck all around. Like, what is redeeming about you? I don't even really think you can hold a note for real either. Like, you... And then this is another thing that came out as well. Apparently, David purchased a plane ticket for Celeste Rivas, who was listed as a 12 to 14-year-old unaccompanied minor from Los Angeles to London on September 28th to 29th. He also made over $2 million after he allegedly killed Celeste. So he flew her out to London with him, maybe when he was doing something over there for business, or on a tour, and there's a plane ticket of it, which is crazy. So he flew her out to meet her. A 12, 13-year-old, a grown person, a grown man, 18 to 19. He was either 18, 19, or 20 around this time. And the shipping address is to Victoria Menendez, and the billing address is David Burke. So David purchased it, and it was shipped to Victoria Menendez, which is that her mother? How are there no results, bro? Hold on. They talked about the parents here somewhere. Let me look up parents. No. Oh, it just says mother and father. We don't know their names. Paulina Davis on Mercedes is Celeste's mom. Victoria Menendez. Who is that? Is it just a random name? Okay. In the criminal case, David, the prosecutors alleged that the artist would use the fake alias Victoria Menendez to purchase tools and disposal items used to mutilate the body of 14-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez. So that was just a fake name he would use when he would buy items online for Celeste. So it was just kind of to cover his tracks, I guess. But like, you put your own name on the damn ticket, so. And then it says, thanks Celeste for choosing United. It's like you're an idiot. On top of that, you got Celeste's name on the ticket, you got your own name, and then you got your little alias. So all a prosecutor has to do is find this damn plane ticket, and now we know all three of these things are connected. Dummy. Not only are you a PDF file, a murderer, corny, you're also an idiot. Yeah, you're an idiot. If Interscope wasn't funding your stupid ass, you would be nowhere, dummy. Like, bro. Crazy. I'm really grateful he was dumb, though. And I do think the parents David's friends knew, no, David's family knew what was going on. She flew her out to have a vacation with them. So David's parents knew he was abusing a minor, said nothing. Maybe he was lying to his parents about her age, and so they believed him. But I'm going to be honest with you. Like, what about this girl? And this picture is like a picture where she looks old. There are some where she actually looks her age. What about that girl looks like someone that should be dating your 20-year-old son? And Celeste's parents, they reported her as a runaway. So I guess they can wash their hands clean of it. But I do feel like they either they either have some type of involvement, or they know more than they're letting on, or they didn't do as much of they could have, in my opinion. This came out recently, but apparently his mother transferred all of David's money to her, so Celeste cannot sue for the money. That's a looks old picture. In this picture, she looks older than some of the other pictures I've seen. A lot of the times when they'll report on media of Celeste, they'll use pictures of her where she has like a full weave on. She has like makeup, and but there are some pictures of her where she like, they're like, some person could make the argument, maybe she just looks young, right? In that picture, why did this pull up? There are some where it's like, that is a child. Like, there's no debate about it. Like, there's no debate about it. And I don't like how sometimes they use pictures like this, because like she looks older in this picture. And I'm not gonna lie, you guys can say she looks like a child in this picture. I have seen grown women that look like this. I have, right? If this is the picture we're using, right? However, this is a deceptive picture, because this is like the oldest she has looked in any picture that they show of her. Like, this is the oldest one that this picture is where she looks the oldest. And I don't love how this is the popular one they use. I guess it is hard to find pictures of Celeste. I mean, there's not a ton of her on the internet because David didn't want her to post, so he could keep this a secret. But there's a picture of her like skiing or in the snow where she looks like a baby. And when she would stream with him, she would look like this. So it was kind of hard to tell how old she was or really what she looked like. But let me find a picture of Celeste where she actually looks her age. Because yes, you can say she looks young, but like there are grown people that look younger. Like, it is the truth. I mean, I know me saying that, people are gonna be like, why are you trying to make her seem old? Like, I'm not doing that. My point is, I think they're doing a disservice by picking the images where she looks older, because it almost kind of like does some weird level of like PR for David, or it doesn't really highlight like how crazy this was that no one else around him stepped in and was like, what the actual is going on? Because she didn't look like this 24/7. This was not what she looked like with no makeup, with her hair done, dressing a little bit, you know, more like a young adult. Like, when she looked like her age, which you're not going to be dolled up all the time around people's close friends and family. Like, you're not going to wear makeup around your boyfriend. You're not going to wear makeup around your friends. Like, so David's friends and his parents were around Celeste, which is confirmed. It's confirmed based on like what the prosecution is alleging. Like, she has not been proven guilty yet. Okay, so this is all technically still alleged, like the story of what happened, but I think he's gonna be proven guilty. Like, let's be honest. But like, right now, you can't say for sure because it has not been proven. But like in court, but allegedly, okay, he flew her out to be with his family, and she wasn't looking like this. You're not gonna look like that all the time. So this is more closer to how she looks, in my opinion. But that even is kind of doing a disservice. Let me pull up a picture of her where she actually looks her age, so you guys can see what I mean. Because like they'll use this picture, I see a lot too, where she has a full makeup and hair done. Like, I also think that's doing a disservice. Or like these ones which is like, she looks older in this picture. Like you could not look at this and in my opinion be like, that's 100% a child, right? But no, there are pictures of her where she looks super, super young and it's like disturbing. Like this. David knew her when she was this age, but they're not using this picture. But like, there's no way Celeste was around David's family and friends looking like this and nobody had questions. Someone knew something was going on and didn't say anything. There's no way if one of my friends showed up with their girlfriend and they looked like this, I would be very concerned. And I would start asking a lot of questions. If they showed up like this, okay, you know what? Maybe they look young, right? Like there's some plausible deniability there. But this is when she's fully dolled up in a picture for the internet. No one's doing that all the time. So this is when she was like 11, which David was talking to her when she was 11. And David also had like a Celeste double he would go to parties with that wasn't the actual Celeste. But yeah, I think it's like there's not a lot of pictures of Celeste because like I said, she wasn't super on social media because David didn't want her to. But like here's another picture of her where she looks super young. And it's like they always pick pictures where she looks a little bit older, in my opinion, or like it's like she could be, you know. But I don't appreciate that because I think it doesn't highlight how disturbing David was being in this case. So the fact that none of his friends or anyone asked any questions is insane to me. Because there's no way you showing up to your mom's house with someone looking like this and being like, this is my girlfriend and I know you're a 20-year-old. No. So that's why I don't love it. Like I don't think, like I said, I don't think I'm looking at these pictures and be like, this is a grown woman. That's not my point. My point is it really numbs the severity of what's going on. And it kind of like, same with a lot of the reporters saying she was a young woman. I mean, I don't like that either. You know, I think child is a better word. I think it's just very standard issue. Like that's reporter jargon. I don't think it's like an intentional choice to cover it up. But I just think I really don't appreciate that that is the language being used. And then they use photos like this because I feel like it really dilutes how horrific this is. And it gives a lot of the people in David's circle plausible deniability to be like, well, she looked older. Well, da-da-da. No, she didn't. This is not what she looked like all the time. This is for Instagram. This is fully dolled up. He knows this picture was being taken. You think he's going to have her show up looking like this in a picture with him? Hell no, because he's trying to hide this. So no, he definitely had her around his close friends looking her age. And no one said anything. Because there's no way you're dating a 14-year-old and none of your friends know about it. I'm sorry, that's impossible. And she's being flown out to your house. She's going to London with you. Like, you're not doing this alone in isolation. Like, she's not quarantined from people. It's not like you only talk to her online at this point. She was around everyone around you. So somebody knew something and didn't say something. And that's what pisses me off. And I think prosecution, I hope they look into David's circle a bit more, because I think the fact that no one said anything is concerning. And I think there was also reports that allegedly David was paying off Celeste's friends or people around them to not say certain things. That came out earlier. I don't know how accurate those are, because these are just allegations. I feel like when a famous person has an allegation, there's anyone that wants to be a part of the story that might have known the person is going to inject some bullshit into it. But there's absolutely no way that no one knew what was going on, is my point. There's no way. And I don't want to guilt or put blame on Celeste's parents, but I do think there was a lot of, she didn't get along with her parents and there was a lot of turbulence in her household. So she kind of found solace online by talking to strangers. And one of the strangers she met was David. and they started a kind of a friendship online originally, and then it kind of grew into a romantic relationship, which is inappropriate on his part. And she became a runaway because she couldn't stand her parents and had household troubles. Whether that means her parents were abusive, or whether that means Celeste was just a teenager going through a rough patch mentally and not handling it well, it's to be determined. But I don't think that's as pressing of an issue as everything else. And I also think, like, even if her parents did fail her in some regards, they also still lost their kid. So it's like, I'm trying not to be too hard on them, because there is no hard evidence of exactly maybe where the neglect was or where something was. And they did report her missing a year prior to all of this. So it's not like they did nothing. It's just, I do think, in my opinion, there could have been more. And I think her not getting along with her parents, or there not being a communication that was healthy, is why she was pushed into these online spaces and ended up meeting David. Now, David doing all this other stuff is separate from her parents, but David's parents, on the other hand, definitely knew something. If he was getting flown out to her, like, his house with his parents. If you really look at the text, it was just the grooming that made her running away. Yeah, I think because she and her parents weren't getting along as well, she went online, which is a very normal thing for teenagers, to be completely frank with you. Even if there is no abuse going on, a lot of kids or young adults or teenagers will go online to kind of have some sense of peace or identity separate from their family. And I think David either knew about this and pounced on it, or it made it easier for David to be like, hey, run away with me. Hey, do this with me. And she followed suit. But I think David's circle and Celeste's circle need to be looked into. They could have either forced restrictions or some aspects or find professional help. I do agree, but the reason I'm not fully ragging on her parents yet, because I don't know anything, is I have met so many parents in my life with problem children that had a lot of bad stuff happen, or they did a lot of bad stuff, that truly the parent did everything in their power to stop what happened from happening, and it still happened, and the kids still ran away, and they still did that. Like, to some extent, it is out of your control when your kid is like 13 and has a rich 21-year-old that can fly her out to London at the drop of a hat because he's a celebrity. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to remember, it's not like a 13-year-old running away on her own. She had a millionaire funding her runaway. So, like, imagine, like, some kids run away with nothing or no millionaire funding the runaway, and they still do it, and their parents still did everything fine. So even in a world, hypothetically, where Celeste's parents did do everything fine, it was that much easier for her to run away and have somewhere to go to, because David was a millionaire. He was a successful, top charting musical artist and a celebrity. So it made it that much easier for her to run away. So that's why I'm not 100 putting as much blame on Celeste's parents, because we don't know the level of involvement or the level of knowledge. And I've personally seen parents with really, really problematic children running away, going and ending up in California, in and out of rehab, having like abusive boyfriends, threatening to kill a family. Like, I know people that have had kids that this has happened to, that I grew up with. Like, the kid was someone I knew, and they had all sorts of crazy stuff going on, and the parent did literally everything in their power to find them, get them rehab, set them up, and it still kept happening. So that's why I don't want to be like Celeste's parents sucked or anything, because I don't really know what happened. I can assume, I can infer, but I don't fully know. And I think highlighting what David did is more of an important thing, because we actually know or have hard evidence for what he did. We don't really know fully Celeste's parents' involvement, which is why I think harping on it is less of a important thing. Because even if her parents did everything correctly, David still could have done this exact same thing. That's my point. Like, he's still a millionaire, and if there's a teen that has a relationship with the parents that is rocky, but the parents are still not abusive, if a millionaire is like, run away with me, it's so easy for them to do that. That's my point. So I think, like, whether or not her parents contributed to her going online is irrelevant, because or whether or not they're abusive is irrelevant, because this still easily could have happened, because David had that much power and leverage over the situation by being older and being a rich celebrity. right? That's why I think harping on it is of less importance, or sometimes can be a little reductive, because we don't fully know what happened. But their friends and their parents, like someone in this equation aside from David and Celeste, knew what was going on and didn't say anything. Who that is, I don't know. It's yet to be determined, but I do hope it comes out, and I do hope they are either like publicly shamed in the court of public opinion, or somehow dragged into the case, or, you know, get charges by proxy, by like aiding and abetting. Being groomed and someone saying to run away is easy if someone isn't from good upbringing. Yes, I agree. I was also groomed around the same age Celeste was, and guess what? My parents were fine. That's what I'm saying. Like, I'm saying that's my point. I think harping on Celeste's parents being awful is less relevant than people think, because whether or not they're good, this still could have very much so happened. Right? Because I got groomed and my parents were fine. So, but the person that groomed me wasn't a millionaire, you know, like platinum certified artist. So they couldn't fly me out and give me a home or a place to escape to. But if they were, and they could have, I maybe would have ended up in this exact same situation. The person who groomed me was a like YouTuber. I also kind of realized what was happening later on, but like they weren't rich like this, is my point. So like, but it still happened to me, and I didn't have bad parents. So that's why I'm like, I don't think focusing on that is as important as people think. I'm not trying to defend her parents or take blame off of them. I just think a lot of people are coming up with theories in their brain, and there's no knowledge or evidence to base these theories on aside from their personal feelings, which I think is a little messy, especially since it could just very well be that Celeste's parents are victims in this by proxy. And I don't want to potentially cause or add on to that until I know exactly what happened, because I think ragging on someone who lost their kid, not great if you don't really know exactly the full story. David's parents and Celeste and David's friend group, however, go for it. Go for it. Somebody else knew. His manager knew, his label at Interscope, somebody else knew what the hell was going on and said nothing. So friends, what about David Story doing? Yeah, that's my point. And I see a lot of discussion about our parents, and it does kind of bother me a bit, because like I said, we don't really know. Like, if we had evidence of this, then yeah, sure. But like, we don't really know. I think the friend group and whoever helped him, he didn't also, I don't think he did this alone. Someone had to have helped him. This doesn't seem like I did this alone type of crime. There's too much that happened. They saw all sorts of stuff. Like, I think somebody else knew. I truly believe that. Somebody else knew. That's what I'm saying. For some people, money changed him too much. I don't think the money changed David at all. I think he was always like this. I think the money enabled him to behave how he wanted to with less restrictions. I think money doesn't change people. I think money highlights your desires that were less accessible when you didn't have the money or resources to pursue them. If you become a piece of shit when you have money, you were a piece of shit deep down the whole time. I do think it can get to your head over time, yes, but if you're doing stuff like this, the money did not cause you to behave this way. You did, and the money made it easy to actualize that idea or that thought you had. It gives you the freedom to act. And yes, David's Discord also knew this was happening too, to some extent. How much the Discord knew, I don't know, because his Discord was his public Discord for streaming and stuff. And I'm not going to lie, I don't think he was telling his audience that Celeste was 13. If in the live stream clips like this, he was trying to cover her up and make it not obvious. So I don't really know if the people, you can be like, oh yeah, Carl in his Discord knew what was going on. Like, I think that's kind of dumb too. Unless it was a private Discord server, but I'm pretty sure it was his public one. Wait, hold on. In the text, he said, I'm sorry, baby. I don't want to put you through this. Celeste, it's okay. Don't worry. Both of us are able to take care of it. I know, but still. Celeste, don't worry about it, my love. David, you're much stronger than me. I love you. Celeste, I love you more, my love. It's okay. Neither of us are capable of watching the baby. David, when are you going to get it done? Celeste, 2 days. David, my mom said I have to ask this question. Don't get offended, but is it mine? Of course it is, David. So David's mom knew something. If these are actual texts from the court arguments, they didn't say it in this, which is why I'm a little bit like, I feel like they would have highlighted that. But they also kind of paraphrased the text. So who knows? Anyways, that's most of the stuff I found in terms of discourse around the David stuff. There's a video I want to watch that goes into, there was a reporter that was in the courtroom during this stuff happened with Law and Crime, and they reported on what they saw and that sort of stuff. There's going to be a lot of like yapping because they're a reporter, like they're gonna, so I don't know how much of this I'm going to utilize per se later, but I do think it's important to watch and highlight. Yeah, I think David is super sick. And I can't believe no one said anything. Why are rich people circles always okay and open with doing stuff with children? My hot take on that is I don't think they are. I just think it's easier to do stuff with kids and it's easier to cover it up when you have money. There are PDF files that are poor all over the country. You're just not hearing about them because they're not famous. The only thing the fame does is highlight how much, or highlight what's happening, right? And the money makes it where it's easier to make it happen, and it's easier to make it happen more frequently or in excess amounts because you have money enabling your behavior. But there are a lot of poor people that groom people. There are a lot of poor people that have inappropriate relations with children. There's like, it doesn't matter. Like most people on like a registry list are not rich, okay? It's just when it is a rich celebrity, we hear about it because they're already a public figure. But if you go look on the registry in your area and see how many people are around you due to Megan's Law, you'll see a lot of people. And trust me, a lot of them are not rich. If they're living in the same neighborhood as you, they're probably not a millionaire, respectfully, unless you are a millionaire.
Air freshener.
So and if you have money, you can pay people to be hush hush or pay people to not expose stuff like David was allegedly doing. Okay, I'm gonna use the bathroom real quick and then we'll continue this. I need to pee. Sorry. I also do, before we start, I also do want to report that apparently there were leaked images of, or like leaked, apparently David's like Apple Music account uploaded songs during the hearing today. Like this is reported as of like 2 hours ago. And it were songs that said, I Confess Single by David, released. It's a pre-release on 27th of July 2026, which comes out tomorrow. I'm Sorry I Love You Celeste, and I'll See You in Hell Celeste. These are fake. He was hacked. So if anyone reports that these are real, they're fake. He's hacked. So don't believe that. That's why I'm highlighting it.
In the car, finances, a possible security guard. Air fresheners in the car, finances, a possible security guard. Not only are we going to get into the substance of the morning session of this hearing, but our reporter got very close to David in court, and what she observed was interesting. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Okay, so we got day 2 of this preliminary hearing in the David case. Remember, he's facing first-degree murder, continuous sexual abuse of a child under 14, unlawful mutilation of human remains charges, all in connection with the death of 14-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez, whose decomposed, dismembered body was allegedly found in the front trunk of a Tesla, allegedly registered to him. This was back in September of 2025. This is a hearing where the court will determine if there's enough evidence for this to go forward to...
Like, his mugshot is so funny because he looks like a scared, like, puppy or like a deer in headlights. Like, you little bitch. No, like, you little like, yeah, look scared, stupid. Look scared. I hope you're terrified. I hope you are horrified. I hope you think I'm about to pull out a shotgun, when I'm deer hunting and blast your brains out. That's how terrified I hope you are.
Trial. I don't want to waste any more time. Let's get into what happened right now in the morning session. Let me bring in our eyes, our ears, someone who's been in that courtroom for the past 2 days, including this morning session. So happy to have her. NBC LA reporter Julie Dang, who I must tell you, terrific notes. I'm looking at the live notes that you've been sending us. So detailed, so thorough. Again, excellent work. Before we even get into the substance of what has happened in this morning session, you have to tell us what you've been seeing in that courtroom, specifically David, right? Because I understand you got really, really close to him today, right? What did you see?
I did, Jesse. But first, I just want to tell you again, it is such a treat to be on this show with you because I love watching it. So yes, I was sitting right behind David this morning. I somehow got a seat in front of where they were seating other reporters. I think it's because I actually walked in a little bit later than everybody else did. So because of that, they had me seated on the end of one of the attorneys' rows in that courtroom, and I was right behind David. He didn't look too great. His hair is grown out. He is unshaven. He's wearing that LA County jail uniform, that orange jumpsuit, and he still has his feet and his waist shackled. He's not wearing handcuffs, though.
They got his waist shackled, too? Good.
He was kind of splayed out in his chair, arms on his armrests. I could see his yellow legal notepad that he had laid out in front of him. So I was trying to take a peek, trying to see if he was taking any notes. He didn't have anything written down. But there definitely were moments this morning during cross-examination of witnesses where he did lean in and talk to his attorneys. The first time I noticed that, it was during cross-examination related to financial management. They were essentially talking about how much money he made through his record deal and how that money was divvied up. because so many people were involved in this operation. So many people were making money off of him, to put it bluntly. And
which is also part of the reason why I think maybe some managers or some exec or someone involved in his business operations was keeping this under wraps, because they benefited from his career existing. So they didn't want this to come out either.
And that's a key part of this case, because murder for financial gain is one of the special circumstances here that makes this eligible for the death penalty. But the district attorney...
And the reason he murdered for financial gain is being considered is because, like, he murdered so that this wouldn't come out and hinder his career.
Ethan Hawkman did say yesterday they haven't actually decided yet if that's something they're going to pursue.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because the idea is, and I'm going to get to the witnesses who testified today, if they can show how lucrative his career was, at $11.5 million, that if Celeste came out and exposed him for this alleged illegal sexual relationship, she was going to take it all away. So the more they can amplify that, I get where they're going. I get what they're trying to do. Before, we get into the substance, I also understand that Celeste's family was back in that courtroom. We talked about yesterday how incredibly difficult it was for them to have to sit through the photos of Celeste's body dismembered, found in that Tesla. What was it like to see them in court today?
It's really tough. You know, Jesse, I told you yesterday, I cannot begin to imagine what they are going through. Yesterday, I was sitting directly behind them, 3 rows behind. Today, I'm sitting at an angle in the row right behind where they're seated. So I can see both of their facial expressions, the mother and father of Celeste. And I actually just ran into her mother, Mercedes, again, upstairs in the restroom. It's really tough. Where we just wrapped before this lunch break, we were hearing testimony from an LAPD criminologist. This was one of the officers called to investigate after the Tesla was towed to one of their tech centers. So we were looking at photos the prosecutor was showing the court of 11 different air fresheners that were found in that Tesla.
But it's like, no, this dude is dumb, bro. What do you mean? I'm gonna put a dead body in this car, but I'm gonna put air fresheners in it so you can't smell it. Like, the body's still there, stupid. Like, I don't understand. Also, car air fresheners, like, suck.
I mean,
like, he's clearly trying to cover it up. Maybe he wanted time for the body to decompose in the sun before people found it.
Celeste's remains had been in there decomposing, likely for months. So to cover up that smell, somebody put nearly a dozen air fresheners, not just inside the car, but actually in the front trunk.
Yeah.
And that's where the cadaver bags with her remains were found. So
I just don't understand why he put them in his car and then parked his car 2 blocks away. Like, that's why initially people were like, oh, there's no way David did this. Because it's like, you would have to be an idiot to do that. You know what I'm saying? Like, you would have to be brain dead. Like, and some people I saw were theory crafting that, like, he wanted this to be found because he wanted to go down as being like an infamous killer or something. Because he would write about it a lot, or he would do all this like death kind of monologues, or he was obsessed with gore. So that's like a theory I've seen people come up with. I don't really know. I just feel like if he was willing to murder her so she didn't come out about his alleged predatory abuse toward her, he wanted to murder her to cover that up. I don't know why he would murder her for the sport of it becoming a public spectacle, because inherently he murdered her to keep his public image good. So I don't think he did that. It just doesn't make sense to me. But that's some theories I've seen.
it's not just...
I think he just killed her to silence her. So if you're doing that, why would you want to make, you know, you wouldn't want to be infamous for that if you're trying to silence him. You're trying to cover it up.
That this crime was committed. It's that somebody went to truly horrifying lengths, Jesse, to try and cover up their tracks. I could see her parents kind of shrinking into themselves and moving a little bit closer together when those photos came up. There's so many elements of this that are horrifying in ways I don't think we can fully imagine for them. So I'm curious to see what their attorney, what their wrongful death attorney, who's not actually involved in this criminal case, what he has to say to us later today. We chatted briefly upstairs. It sounds like he is going to take more questions from us later today.
Let me ask you now about the testimony. So they continue the testimony of Benjamin Gregor. I don't know if I'm saying the name correctly, this Mogul Vision finance director, this business associate of David, talking about David's finances. Talk to me about what the start of today's testimony was like. And by the way, I was reading, is he an interesting witness? Is he a bit combative in a way? Is his testimony not consistent with what he told the grand jury? So what exactly is the tone of his testimony, and what did he say today?
Jesse, that's a really gentle way of putting it, inconsistent. Yeah, I noted that yesterday. I sent you guys a couple notes about that as it was happening. Yes, he does come across as a little bit combative when he's talking to prosecutors, when he's talking to the deputy DA here, Beth Silverman. When she was cross-examining him, there were several instances.
Because he's benefiting off of David's career. So, like, of course he's going to be combative, you know? And if he knew something, he's going to be very combative. But, like, I think he doesn't want I think even if he didn't know anything, I think the idea that people are going to assume he does because he benefited off of David's finances is also going to cause him to be combative.
Where he gave her answers that not just misaligned, but were in direct opposition to what he apparently said during grand jury hearings. And she was actually referencing transcripts from those secret grand jury hearings to verify that, to be like, wait a minute, did you mean this house or the other house was going to be put up as collateral so David could make bail? And then she asked him very pointedly several times, is your testimony accurate today or was it accurate then? So I think any instance where a witness is apparently changing their story on the stand, it makes you wonder, who had they been talking to? You know, was some...
Yeah, especially if he's still working with people that are benefiting off of David's money. I mean, his songs are still up. You still listen to them. His label still can collect percentages off his streams.
Some kind of deal, perhaps discussed or even struck. Why did their story change? And then obviously, what's in it for them?
Cameras and audio recording are not allowed at this multiple-day preliminary hearing in Los Angeles. Prosecutors are trying to prove they have enough evidence for this case to move forward to trial. Now, we are one of the few media outlets with someone in the courtroom, and NBC LA reporter Julia Dang will join me here in just a moment. Now, I want you to take a look at some new courtroom sketches we just got in from day 2 of this preliminary hearing per artist Mona Edwards. One of the big points of contention today was how the Tesla, where Celeste's body was found in July of last year, was processed by police. David's high-powered defense attorneys are really taking aim at how evidence was handled, and to this point, it is fair to question how prosecutors will prove that David was the one who committed such a terrible crime and not someone else. Joining us now to talk.
I mean, that is fair. Like, they don't have any evidence tying that he was the one that actually killed the body, right? Like, that's the problem. Like, they either need to circumstantially prove that, like, he was the only one to have motive enough to do it, or he knew about it happening, or they need some hard forensic evidence to prove that he did it. But, like, right now, it's just his car, and cars get stolen all the time. So the good news is, though, Tesla has diagnostic data. So if someone stole the car, it might have recorded it, right? So they might be able to, like, prove that, hey, no, that's not what happened. But yeah, that is also a point of problem. I mean, they do have, I guess, probably proof of him having a alleged relationship with Celeste when she was a minor, which is still a crime. You can still, that's still like a felony. But the actual murder, I mean, the only thing is the car is registered in his name, right? They can't really prove that he mutilated the body. Like, they can't prove specifically he was the one involved, only that he probably knew about it. So that is, I guess, hard. I mean, I guess to, like, the general audience watching, it's like, damn, this is so open and shut. You know, like, how is this not obvious? But it's like, it's kind of like the same thing with, like, the O.J. Simpson case, where it's like, they need hard evidence proving that this happened, even if, like, optically from the outside, it's kind of like, how else could anyone else have done this? They need enough of it to be like proven without doubt. That's the thing. That's the problem. So like, yes, to us, it might be like, yeah, there's no, like, who else would have done this? And like, I kind of feel the same way, but also my thing is like, I don't know if he was the one that killed her directly. I don't know either. I think, however, he was involved. He knew something at the very least, is my theory. I think he knew something at the very least. I feel like him being involved in the actual murder or mutilation would make some sense if, because it'd be easier to catch someone off guard that you're dating. However, and he also did enjoy watching gore, so the mutilation stuff, maybe he was involved in that, but he also could have just watched as some random person he's either friends with, works with, or hired cut up the body in front of him, and that was enough for him to get his like mental, you know, sick masturbation off in his head. So I think he was the orchestrator of the murder happening. How involved he was in the physical aspect of it is yet to be proven, because there's no, if they don't find DNA on the body involving him, it's kind of like, well, we can't prove you were the one that cut this up. And they need also someone else to prove that like he was the one that facilitated this, right? I mean, I think circumstantially it looks bad. Yes, I think he knew 100% what happened. I think he knew he was involved. It's just whether or not he physically did it, they can't prove due to the body state.
Talk more about what happened in court today. Julia Dang, reporter with NBC LA. Great to have you here on Law and Crime. A lot to get to today. I just want to first start, though, with David himself. Yesterday, we talked a lot about his demeanor, at times maybe seeming bored as this was going on. What stood out to you today about how he seemed to be acting?
Hey there, Chris. Great to be with you. It was really the same with David. He was let in first thing this morning when day 2 of this preliminary hearing started. He was shackled at first. They did take off his handcuffs. That was part of the agreement yesterday after his attorneys made that request for him to be unshackled in the courtroom. He's just sitting there, you know, very still, not taking very many notes, not saying much to his team. There were portions of testimony today where I noted David just staring straight ahead.
Also, the person who's saying Celeste look good and I'm gonna wait till she's legal age, you're banned. Disgusting ass message. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you, bro? Like, I'm sorry, that's crazy.
Really isn't much on his face.
That's still grooming and still a crime, by the way, mind you.
That we can read, but I did have an interesting sidebar conversation with a courtroom sketch artist. Now, as an artist, obviously she has this very valuable perspective because she's being paid to draw this guy. She's also sitting in a different location in that courtroom, right? She's sitting in the jury box, so she's looking right at the defendant, David Burke. So we chatted for a little bit during the court break, during lunch, and she said it looks to her like he couldn't care less about what happens. There's kind of a glib manner to how he's moving and how he's interacting with his team and how he's kind of just staring straight ahead. So I asked her, you know, is this typical? You've been through hundreds of criminal trials. You've sketched probably more criminal defendants than you could count. Have you seen this before? And she kind of nodded and said, yeah, I've seen this. So other people I've talked to, you know, words they've used about David's demeanor in that court.
It wasn't an anomaly for him to not react. And I've seen a lot of, I've seen a lot of, like trials where the person that's being accused just looks numb on the stand. And I'm not gonna lie, like, I do think it, like, it does make sense, even if you're not like psychotic, to kind of behave that way. Cause like sometimes people's way of processing stuff is just no reaction. But I just think for him, it's like, also, if you're willing to kill someone, like, you're going to be desensitized to the fact that you did afterward anyways. You know what I'm saying? Like, This was not like a, oh, I hit him with my car murder. This was like a, I stabbed you to death murder. Like, clearly seeing what you already did is not, should not bother you this much. If you were able to go on tour and live a happy, you know, life afterward, like nothing happened.
Rome, they've described it as false, as sociopathic. We've only heard him speak a couple times, just, yes, Your Honor, or I understand. And he's dressed in the exact same way he was yesterday. He's wearing that orange LA County jail uniform, that jumpsuit. He's got grown out hair. He's wearing black glasses, and he looks unshaven and, frankly, pretty exhausted.
When you think about, like, this is someone who was set to make millions. He was already making millions of dollars, but like with this new album that was coming out, he was set to make a lot of money. And you think about that, you know, really, if he's convicted of this, that is all gone. And yet he just has this demeanor about him that I think is surprising to a lot of people. You would also think his attorneys have probably prepared him to how to act, how he should act as this preliminary hearing goes on. You know, as far as today,
but like, what do y'all want from him? Y'all want him to cry? Like, you're still gonna pick that apart. That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think there's any reaction he would have, aside from no reaction or looking sad, that would like elicit a different response from the public. You know what I'm saying? I feel like it's like we're harping on this a little bit too much. I think if he was laughing, smiling, like something like insane, okay, yes, point it out. But I think most of the time, people that are accused of murder on a stand are just like, if they're not speaking in their trial. You know?
Hey, Julia, inside the courtroom, there was a lot of evidence talking about what could be presumed as blood. Inside the Tesla, in the garage, there's this blue star technology. And if you've seen pictures of it in other cases, you have kind of this blue splatter on the wall after they put a chemical down. And they say that that is presumably where blood once was. Of course, when you think of Celeste, her remains were allegedly found in the front trunk of this Tesla. But that's not the only place where law enforcement is now alleging where they found blood in the car. What stood out to you about that part of the testimony today?
That's right. That was the key part of the testimony today from the prosecution's witnesses. So we did start wrapping up testimony from yesterday relating to financial management and just how much money David was making. And then we heard from a CHP officer who testified about where Celeste's passport ID was found months after her body was found. That was up in Santa Barbara County. And then we heard from two LAPD staffers. They are criminalists. One was the primary criminalist who processed the scene with the Tesla, and the other was involved in the search of David's house up in the Hollywood Hills a couple days after the body was found on September 17th of last year. So this is what was new and what was really interesting, Chris. We haven't heard about this detail before. According to this testimony from one of those two LAPD criminalists, there was actually blood identified in the brick flooring underneath where a car would have been parked. And that was underneath black rubber mats that were laid down on the garage floor in David's house.
So they could have moved the body after he killed her in the house into the car in the garage.
So what they seem to be painting a picture of here is blood leaking out of David's Tesla, seeping through those rubber floor mats and then seeping down into that brick flooring.
Yeah, I just don't know how the Tesla's cameras weren't active, because like my friend has a Tesla, and like when it's off and parked in a parking lot, if someone walks near your Tesla or gets close to it, and like someone might have maybe hit your car, like it will give you an alert and like show a recording of them getting close to your car. So I don't know how his car didn't have that. I don't know if they don't have a warrant for that, or I don't know if somehow you can disable that, and that's like a setting you need to have it enabled. I don't know if his car is an older model of Teslas that doesn't have it, but like I'm surprised there's not more diagnostic data from the Tesla given how much it takes.
And hearing that, you know, and sitting right behind the victim's parents, it was jarring. There is so much evidence in this case.
It's automatic. Yes, the Tesla thing is automatic. I don't know if it's automatic only if it's enabled in the settings and you can disable it. I don't know.
It's been unsettling in truly shocking ways that I don't think I've experienced before anywhere. But being, you know, in that courtroom with the victim's parents, I think that drives home the point that this is about a human, this is about a teenager, this is about a girl who was killed and dismembered. This is about justice for her.
It really is. And I keep thinking since yesterday about just that moment that I know you witnessed in person of these images that were put up on the screen of Celeste remains and what they found. And not just as jarring as it must have been for you, the members of the media, the members of the public who were in the courtroom, but like, here are her parents who were private people before all of this. And I know her civil attorney has talked about that. These were not, people who were in the limelight prior to all of this happening. And then suddenly you're in the center of this case about your daughter, and then you're looking at these images up on the screen. And some of the evidence that's been brought out too, kind of going back to that Tesla, was today about air fresheners. And there were 11 air fresheners that were found, which that's a lot of air fresheners to have in your car, to be blunt.
Yeah.
How did that tie into what prosecutors seem to be laying out about how that vehicle was used in what they're accusing David of doing?
I'm glad you bring that up, because that was what really stood out to me, Chris, during testimony from the first LAPD criminalist we heard from today. There were at least 11 air fresheners found in that Tesla by the time this criminalist was called out to the Piper technical scene where the car was towed to from the Hollywood tow yard. At least 11. And here's the detail that caught my attention about where in the car those air fresheners were found. They were not just in the interior. They found them in the center console. They found them in the back seats. They also found air fresheners in the front trunk. So this isn't just about how Celeste was killed, how her body was then mutilated. This is also about the cover-up efforts. I mean, somebody must have noticed, oh, it smells terrible. We got to do something to cover that up. So somebody actually opened up the front trunk.
Is the court going to determine that there is sufficient evidence to support these charges for this case to move forward against David? Like I said,
if it doesn't, I've lost all faith in the justice system. There's definitely enough evidence to factor in. So by the way, since this is like a preliminary hearing, like all the evidence in the case is not being laid out or dissected in this. They're just presenting stuff that is pressing enough to bring it to trial. So it's like, it's not going to be everything. Like, they're not going to cover their bases. They're kind of going to give bullet points that they think would be enough for them to determine if it's going to trial. So like, not everything has come out. So if something, they're like, why don't they have evidence of this or that? It could still maybe come out later. They're just saving it for the actual trial because they don't want, the prosecution sometimes doesn't want to like give their strategy away to the defense prior to the court case. Like, yes, they give the discovery to the defense so the defense can look through everything, but how they're going to frame the evidence or how they're going to be like, because like, let's say how discovery works is like, we have this evidence on you. Okay. Right. We have this evidence on David. And now the defense like legally has a right to view that evidence before the trial. So David's attorneys can look at that, but the commentary on what that evidence means for the story the prosecution is trying to paint will not be given to the defense. So only the evidence is given, not the commentary on what it means. So that way, the strategy that the defense and or prosecution uses is not being shared to one another. So they can't just actively combat semantics or try to like outwit each other ahead of time, because that makes it kind of ineffective. It's like you're trying to counter the strategy rather than countering the evidence, and it makes it unfair to both sides. So that's why in a preliminary hearing, you have to kind of show your hand a little bit, because you need to prove in the court that there is enough evidence for this to actually go to trial. But they don't want to give out too much of their hand. Like, they don't want to show everything, because then David's defense team, if it does go to trial, can kind of utilize what was shared in the preliminary hearing and make a defense around that, so they know what to hone in on, because there's 40 gigabytes of evidence. So the idea of like everything being as important as maybe the defense views it or the prosecution views it, they're going to view that evidence differently in levels of like what's important to one side or what's important to the other. So if they already know how each side is moving strategically, they could just ignore the evidence or ignore what's going on to kind of solely focus on countering the other side's strategy rather than countering like the evidence, if that makes sense. So that's why it's not everything is going to come out in this, because it's only a preliminary. So Sorry, terabytes. Yeah, they had 40 terabytes. Gigabytes is the wrong term. You're right. 40 terabytes. And so, yeah, that's why they're not going to give out everything. So if you're wondering, like, why wasn't this covered? Why wasn't this? It's because they're not trying to show their hand. They're not trying to show their hand.
Had a lot to get into. Let's jump in. Okay, so let me bring in once again our eyes and our ears in that courtroom. Julia Deng, NBC LA reporter who has been fantastic. We get her notes in every day. They are so thorough. They are so specific. They're so detailed. Thank you so much for coming on. So first of all, before we even get into the substance, before we even talk about the demeanor of David, this court day started with fireworks. The judge was not happy. What happened?
Okay, the verbiage fireworks and not happy, like, use a different term. No, like, what? Well, like, when I hear fireworks, I'm like, oh yeah, it's a celebration. Buddy, what are you talking about?
Jesse, what a morning. We are in day 3 now of this preliminary hearing, and it started with a little bit of drama this morning. There was actually a reporter who was kicked out of the courtroom. The judge excluded her from today's proceedings because apparently there were live transmission rules that were violated. So this court has been very strict about preserving the integrity of this case. And we've talked about this before. Obviously, no cameras are allowed in that courtroom, no phones. You know, I'm not communicating with you guys, with really anybody in the outside world, as all of this is going down. And it's part of this larger, I think, respect of the integrity of this court. And the spirit of this court, because they want to ensure everything is done properly. Nobody here wants to risk any kind of mistrial, anything leaking that is not supposed to. So right now, during this court break, we can talk to you about what exactly went down.
And look, it's understandable. I mean, particularly when you're dealing with such a high-profile case like this and the sensitive nature of this case you're talking about.
Yeah, I do think whenever a case becomes media spectacle, it gets very hard for jury tampering not to be factored in, because if you're hearing so much stuff about a case publicly, like you're not supposed to like look into it as a jury member, but like you're not like isolated in the sense of like you couldn't leave your house or you couldn't like leave your hotel to get food. Like it's not like you're like in jail. So like you might hear something. So sometimes they try to mitigate like what exactly is being shown, so the public has less of a discussion or discourse to maybe throw off the trial.
The alleged sexual abuse, murder, and dismemberment of a minor, of a 14-year-old girl. So let me ask you this too. A guy that we've had on the show multiple times, Steve Fisher, the private investigator.
Let me say this off so I can watch whole of it. If you're a member on my YouTube, you can watch the VOD. Otherwise, like I'll make it a video later.
Who was apparently hired by the owner of the property where David had been staying, right? This is near where the Tesla was reportedly found. So he's been investigating from day one. We've had him on the show. Some drama with him in the courtroom today, right? What happened there?
Right.
That's right. Now, according to the prosecutor in this case, the deputy DA, Beth Silverman, apparently Steve Fisher violated grand jury secrecy. And because of that, she made a request this morning for him to be excluded from the witness list. He was in the courtroom. He was sitting right by me. He stood up, acknowledged that request. There wasn't any kind of pushback. There was no argument there. And he walked out. So we're not going to hear from Steve Fisher in the courtroom as part of this preliminary hearing. But obviously, if this goes to trial, we do expect to hear from him. I know he's been on your show. I've heard those interviews. He has a lot of intel that I think is going to be critical to this case if it goes to trial. But right now, we are still in prelim. This is day 3. They just need to establish probable cause for this to move forward. So we are now on, I think, witness number 8 as this continues, and we're all expecting this to go through the rest of today and likely even tomorrow, maybe on Monday as well.
Yeah, and look, Steve Fisher has provided, a really, really insightful information in this case, some of which has actually been backed up by what we saw by the prosecution's filing. It was not surprising considering what we heard from Steve, and he's been quite vocal about this case. He's been quite vocal about David. He's been quite vocal about the prosecution as well, so interesting development. Okay, before we get to the witnesses, I always have to ask you, since we don't see it ourselves, it's the best we get are sketches from the courtroom artist. David, What's his demeanor like in court? Because the way we've been looking at it the past few days, for somebody who is, by all accounts, I mean, if you ask me my legal opinion, I think there's going to be enough here for this case to move to trial. For somebody whose life is on the line, for somebody who's facing murder and continuous sexual abuse of a minor charges and unlawful mutilation of human remains charges, the past few days, what we've seen, how it's been described, is somebody who seems kind of like nonchalant, pretty bored, kind of casual, doesn't seem to be too stressed out. Is that what he's looking like today?
Yeah, Jesse, and I can't get past that. I mean, imagine if you or somebody you knew were in that hot seat. I mean, I think you might care a little bit more. Let me tell you, actually, what the courtroom sketch artist said. I chatted with Mona Schaefer-Edwards during the court break about an hour ago, and I said to her, you know what, Mona, you've got the most interesting perspective in this courtroom in the sense that she's sitting facing the defendant. She's
like I said, I truly feel like his reaction, if it's like him just staring, is kind of like there's like I don't think there's a point to highlight it because every criminal I've ever seen just does the same damn thing. Like, I'm not, what do you want him to do? Cry? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, if he cried, you would be like crocodile tears. Like, I was like, you know, even if he did do it, like, I'm just saying, like, everyone's going to look the same.
In the jury box area. So she gets to see his face, his expressions, and she's been sketching this for all of us who are using her art to cover this case. So she told me, Jesse, it looks to her like David is, quote, on another plane. He seems completely disengaged. I'm reading his facial expressions kind of from off to the side. I'm watching him from an angle. He's not reacting much. You know, it's a lot the same as yesterday, where he's kind of just staring straight ahead at the witness who's testifying and then that overhead monitor that's projecting the exhibits. But no, he's really not reacting, and that includes when we see the victim's clothing, you know, her soiled, blood-stained, insect-infested, wet clothing that was found in the cadaver bags along with her remains. He's just staring straight ahead. He's got his arms folded. He's got this yellow legal notepad in front of him. It doesn't look to me like he's taking any brief exchange.
Yes. Do you know if he's on any kind of medication or anything like that?
I don't know, Jesse, and we're not going to speculate on this show, but that is a question that's come up in sidebar conversations. We don't know, and that hasn't come up in court.
Okay.
I imagine if he is, it will.
Okay, got it. All right, let's talk about the substance. So the first witness back on the stand was this criminalist, right? And being questioned by the defense. What happened there?
So we ended yesterday with cross-examination of an LAPD criminalist. She was the one who was called to process evidence found in David's garage. And that evidence included everything from trash bags to rubber floor mats to bloodstains. She was the one who tested chainsaws found in David's house. This was just about a week after the car was found in the Hollywood tow yard with the victim's remains in the front trunk, of course. So they continued with that.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, he needs meds for empathy. Cook him.
Cross-examination. And there was a lot of back and forth about the chainsaws. And here's why. Defense attorney Blair Burke noted there was no positive test indicating the possibility of blood on those chainsaws. So she kept on asking this LAPD witness for the prosecution why they didn't take those chainsaws into evidence. It sounded like she wanted to make the point that touch DNA, which they didn't test for, may have indicated something else, may have painted a more comprehensive picture of what exactly happened and who may have been involved, who else may have been involved, that is. But the criminalist was very sharp, very clear with her answers. At one point yesterday, she even brought her notes back out to make sure that she gave precisely the information that was documented during this investigation. So she said there did not appear to be any kind of forensic value to those chainsaws that were found in the garage, and that's why they were not taken into evidence. So my big takeaway from all of this is that perhaps those were...
So the defense is trying to be like, well, hey, if you don't put these into evidence, like you're trying to frame him for this because he didn't use these. So why didn't you put it in if you're, because he wasn't the one that used the chainsaws. The chainsaws in his house weren't the ones there. You know what I'm saying?
Not the weapons or tools used for dismemberment, even though they were found in David's garage.
But it's like, why do you have multiple? Like, who owns multiple chainsaws? You know what I'm saying? Like, how often are you using a chainsaw in a LA mansion in the hills to own multiple of them? You know what I'm like? That does not make any sense.
During this search.
Let me just clarify this point, just so it's clear for our audience. I heard there was reporting, maybe even testimony, about a missing chainsaw. I don't know if that's accurate.
Yeah.
And what about any evidence of a cleanup, including of the chainsaws? Correct me if I'm wrong about either of those points.
Correct on the first point. There was another chainsaw, a Makita brand chainsaw that we talked about the other day that was ordered online and delivered to David's house. As far as I know, from the evidence presented so far, that chainsaw was not located during this search. The two other chainsaws, and here's why the criminal...
So they know he ordered it, but they couldn't find it. So that, in my opinion, that might be the one they're looking for then.
List said there really was no forensic value. She testified earlier that had they been used for dismemberment, there would have been no way for blood to be cleaned up to the point where their testing did not indicate something of forensic value. So when they did that initial test...
So they're basically saying, yeah, these chainsaws weren't the ones used because nothing was found on them. So they think the one that was used was he ordered online.
On
Yo, Amish, thank you so much for the 11 months. Thank you.
scene, and there was no presumptive positive, they elected not to take those two chainsaws into evidence. But yes, there is a missing one. There is another one, and I'm sure that's going to come up later in this testimony.
Look, as shocking as a case like this is, it is not a shock that there would be blood or presumed traces of blood at a crime scene. But what about fake blood? That is not something we were expecting, but it is one of the pieces of information we learned about today in David's preliminary hearing. Investigators...
Well, you see what's a Party City to try to throw off the investigators? Like, what the I'm not gonna lie. Like, listen, there's a lot of strategies criminals will employ to cover their tracks. This gotta be one of the dumbest ones I have ever heard, bro. Because not only does it imply that you're guilty, but it's also like, it's not like putting fake blood on top of real blood makes the real blood go away. Like, they can still find the DNA evidence.
Say they found jugs of...
But maybe also the fake blood was like something artistically for like a music video or something too. I mean, he did have a lot of like death themes in his music. It could have just been that and he just had extra. So it might not have even been related, to be honest. I just think anything that seems like it could be conflated with the case will be, because like, oh, he killed someone, he has fake blood, you know? But I mean, a lot of his visuals or his like media for his music was death related or kind of gory.
Fake blood in the singer's garage. We'll talk a little bit about why the singer may have had that blood in his garage and how it could factor into this case as we move forward in just a moment with our reporter who is in the courtroom today. I want you to also take a look at some of the new sketches that we have in from artist Mona Edwards. David, today, once again, we're told looked emotionless. As prosecutors continue to lay out evidence they say proves that he killed Celeste as they try to move this case to the next step in the legal process. Joining us now, just stepping out of the courtroom, is Julia Dang, NBC LA reporter. Thanks for being here once again. I want to start with how things wrapped up at the end of today. And we heard
what happened? No. What happened, bro? How we go from you looking normal to this? Who messed with the ISO settings, bro?
From a deputy medical examiner. This is the person who did the autopsy on Celeste Rivas Hernandez. What stood out to you about what he had to say?
That's right, Chris. We just broke for the day. We actually didn't think we were going to get to this witness today, but Dr. Grantho took the stand just about 4 minutes before we wrapped for today, day 3 of this preliminary hearing in the murder case against 21-year-old David Anthony Burke. So he just started laying out his findings from this autopsy conducted September 10th. That was 2 days after.
Bro, I'm not gonna lie, the super sticker scared the shit out of me. Yo, thank you for the $5 tip. I appreciate you. Thank you, Furby. Thank you, Furby's Allah. I appreciate you.
This teenager's remains were found in the front trunk of David's Tesla. He's testifying about the state of decomposition.
I don't think he probably mixed the fake with the real blood so they wouldn't find trace of it. No, they would still find DNA in that. And also, I think they would have mentioned that if it was noted or brought up. I just think it was found in the garage, and that's where they're theory crafting that the real blood was there too. Also, Son, can you just stop typing the same message? I've read it. I'm just not gonna read it aloud because I'm watching a video.
It was tough, incredibly tough to see the photos the other day in court. Hearing this testimony now from the deputy medical examiner who actually led the autopsy, this might be even tougher, Chris, in different ways. So I completely understood when the victim's parents actually got up and left the courtroom before he took the stand. They are not sitting in there for this testimony. But he's talking about the state of decomposition. He testified that when they weighed her remains, it only came out to 71 pounds. The last thing he said on the stand before we ended today was that she still had her braces on. And of course, it was the dental records that helped them make that positive identification, because when they found her remains, you know, there was so much decomposition, there was so much skin slippage, they couldn't identify her. There simply was not enough left.
And I saw in your notes, just kind of going through it, and just that line that she still had her braces on. And, you know, we'll talk more about her family and everything they've been going through over these last couple of days. But like, that just is a reminder that we're talking about not just a person who lost their life, but, you know, such a young person at 14 years old, at the center of this case. And you know, this week trying to see what happens next. And as far as whether it continues down, you know, the track to potentially going to trial one day, seemed like there was a lot of DNA evidence today, and very much in the weeds about what was found, what tested positive. For you, like, what was the headline and kind of the moment when you think back through hours of testimony today, especially when it came to DNA, that really stood out to you?
My main takeaway, Chris, is that a good defense attorney, a strong defense team, can question anything and everything. And that is going to be key if this does indeed go to trial, which I think most people in that courtroom do expect. The threshold here in this preliminary hearing phase is much lower. The prosecution only needs to show a probable cause. Think of that as kind of like a 51% threshold. But if this does go to trial, in order for a jury to convict...
Which is why I don't think they're going to play all their cards. Like I said, they're not going to. What's the point? Like, they don't need to prove without a reasonable doubt that he killed her. They just need to prove, like, hey, we should maybe consider if she did kill her, or if he did kill her without a reasonable doubt. You know what I'm saying?
That's got to be beyond a reasonable doubt. Think of that as more like a 99.9% probability. So this is kind of like rehearsal for both sides. You know, they're testing out their witnesses. They're seeing how they perform on this stand as humans being questioned, you know, in front of a live audience under a lot of pressure. And we in the media, we're getting a sense of what questions might be asked during trial, how these witnesses are going to hold up, and how they might look and sound.
Yeah, these are some of the pictures she would post there where she would be like covering her face like this with like a bag or something, you know?
And feel to a live jury of their peers. Now, to your question about this DNA evidence, you know, we spent the bulk of the afternoon going through that testimony. It started with questions from Deputy DA Beth Silverman. It was her witness. Samantha Tosh, an LAPD criminalist, who's from the LAPD crime lab, who is responsible for testing, analyzing, and reporting on DNA samples. And then defense attorneys did their cross-examination, and then that witness went back to the prosecution, and then defense had more questions for her. So what all of that adds up to is a lot of information that can be looked at different ways, right? None of this is actually definitive. And the witness, the LAPD criminalist, was careful to make that clear. You know, she's using language like possible or probable, but the statistics that she laid out, and we're talking about figures, right, with 24 zeros after the first digit. She laid out statistics that make it unlikely, if not close to impossible, for these DNA matches to be from anybody but Celeste. Now the question is, you know, where is that DNA match actually coming from? Is it definitively coming from blood, or could it be something like skin? Because she spent time living in that house and touching items in the garage. That's what defense attorneys spent quite a bit of time today questioning, going back and forth with that one witness. If this does go to trial, I think we can expect a lot.
Oh yeah, they also do need to prove that the evidence from one thing is the evidence in another, because like it's not like she's like booked into evidence from something prior, and the fingerprints and or like IDing the body manually by like looking at it is impossible given how decomposed it was.
More of that, Chris.
And there's so many pieces of evidence, I feel like, Julia, as like this has gone on for the last couple of days, where from a circumstantial standpoint, it seems incredibly strong for the prosecution, but then you'll have David's defense attorneys come back and just nitpick every single word of what a witness said. As far as some of where DNA was found, you know, there were blood stains in the Tesla, and through just kind of going through some of these notes, that there was a toenail that was Celeste, and then they were able to create a DNA profile on that. But then you get into these trash bags, I believe, that were found at David's house, right? And then there are these wipes in the trash bag, and like it does not get, to me it came off just kind of going through this, like it's muddied and it's not clear who is handling what inside the house. And there's even some DNA on there that may be from other people. We don't know. Like, what did
They can tell all the ancient bodies, but can tell it was her. Well, because in order to positively ID the body, they either need the person's parents or someone who is a loved one to look at the body and be like, yes, that is my daughter. Or B, they need DNA evidence proving a sample from when she was alive that they can verify was hers, and a sample of the dead body, and cross-reference them and be like, oh, this is a match. But if they don't have any previous sample from her, they can't really be, it's harder to prove that that sample was actually hers to begin with. Because they can't be like, this spit we found in a cup in her house, that's Celeste's spit, and it matches with this body, because it could have been like Tiffany's spit, you know what I'm saying, and it matches with the body. So like that's why it's harder to prove exactly what happens, right? The easiest way normally is dental records, because like everyone gets their teeth fixed if they have decent parents, and so a lot of times the teeth don't really decompose that quickly. So if even, so that is a lot of the time the easiest way they do it. But yeah, they're trying to, like, the defense is trying to, I guess, paint the picture that like, hey, well, how can you know it's a match? You know what I'm saying? What about hair for her room or something? But they also, like I said, they have to prove that it was her room. Like, it's not as easy as like hair in the house matches hair in the body, because it could be like any other person, right? That's the problem. The other never goes though, so they could trace the DNA back to her and check the records for consistency. And that was how they identify the body. Yes, technically they could do that, which is why I think they're going to. I don't know exactly. I mean, I'm not a DNA forensic person. I could be a bit wrong, but I'm pretty sure, like, just because DNA sample A is found in person's house and DNA sample A person is dead, like that confirms that the two samples match, but it doesn't confirm that DNA sample A is Celeste's. You know what I'm saying? That's the problem. Like, yes, the DNA might match, but they need to prove that it's hers, because they can't, like, otherwise they can't prove the body is hers. You know what I'm saying? Like, although it sounds like really like some dumb semantics, and it's like, well, who else would it be? Like, they still have to do it with beyond a reasonable doubt.
Kind of all of those different layers to what seems like a really complicated part of the story that the prosecution's trying to tell.
When I first heard some of that DNA evidence from the LAPD witness when the prosecution was questioning her, I felt like it was incredibly compelling evidence. I mean, you can't question something with a statistical probability that's got 24 zeros behind the first digit, right?
Yeah.
Well, I guess if you are Blair Burke, you can question that. And she raised a couple hypotheticals about that compelling DNA evidence. She actually laid out a scenario about tertiary transfer, right? She told the court, what if I shook my co-counsel's hand and then I touched the podium and then the judge put her notebook down on the podium, right? Could my co-counsel's DNA then end up being transferred to that notebook? And the witness answered that on the stand. Yes, that's a possibility. So gaps like that being created by the defense in just about everything the prosecution is laying out, that I think is going to be a recurring theme for the rest of this preliminary hearing, and certainly if it goes to trial. And any member of the jury listening to this, you know, it's going to come down to
and like
what
since there was such a long time between the body being found and the evidence, like the jury is gonna, or sorry, the defense is gonna be able to poke so many holes in that and be like, well, it could have been this, well, it could have been that, and that's what they're doing.
Who they believe and how much doubt the defense can.
Can they get DNA from her parents, link a match? I think they could. Yes, I just don't know. I guess they could. I never considered that. I think the more of the semantics they're arguing is like how the DNA ended up in the house, or like, you know what I'm saying, or like how it ended up on thing A. I guess you're right about that. I mean, I didn't think about that. Like I said, I don't do this for a living. I'm just kind of yapping. So like something I say could be wrong or incorrect, or I could have not factored something in. But yeah, I guess they could have done that. I just think whenever they do take DNA from parents, it's still not like 100% match, right? And I don't know if like in the legal like definition or like requirements for conviction, they need it to be 100% match, if that makes sense. Like I don't know what the criteria is for that.
Asked on all of this.
So now,
but also the jury doesn't have to rule on like evidence. Like if they were emotional enough to be like, yeah, he's guilty, they could just rule on that anyways. Like there's no law saying you need to be objective when you're a jury member. Like you can be biased. I mean, they try to weed that out, but like you could view the case in its entirety and be like, well, we can't 100% prove that this happened, but like I have a gut feeling, and they can rule on that. You know what I'm saying? Which like ideally they wouldn't do, because that's kind of not the point, but that is what a lot of people will do. Because humans are emotional beings at the end of the day.
We're going back, and today's big because this is the testimony of the deputy medical examiner, Dr. Grant Ho. Let's talk about it. Okay, let me bring in our eyes and our ears once again. Julia Deng, NBC LA reporter who has been fantastic throughout all of this. Good to see you again. There's a lot to get into here. There is a lot to get into when we talk about the deputy medical examiner's testimony. But before we even do that, we've always started by talking about David's demeanor in the courtroom. And the way that we've gone through it for the past several days, it's that he looks kind of bored. He looks like he, you know, you described, the court reporter even said yesterday that he looks like he's on another plane, disengaged. Today, though, if I'm reading the notes that you sent over, a little bit different from David today, right?
A tiny bit, Jesse. He is a little bit more animated. He came in today, you know, wearing the standard LA County jail uniform, that orange jumpsuit. He's got a shirt on underneath it. Hair is kind of grown out. He looks tired, unshaven, but he did seem a little bit more animated. He sat down, had a conversation with one of his defense attorneys, and then started smiling and chit-chatting a little bit with her. That was different. But once testimony started up again, and we were hearing from the deputy medical examiner, one of two people involved in actually performing the autopsy on Celeste after her remains were found in David's Tesla, he went back to his usual, you know, expressionless, emotionless, really motionless pose sitting at the counsel table. He's staring straight ahead, kind of just blinking at the witness on the stand, staring at the exhibits on that overhead monitor, and really not moving, not reacting.
And by the way, before we even get into the substance of the testimony, where I really think it's interesting what both this medical examiner had to say and what the defense has been saying, the photos that were shown to the whole gallery, which you saw, your reporting indicates there was an audible reaction in the courtroom to those photos. Can you describe what you mean by that?
There was an audible reaction. There was a visceral reaction. And let me describe to you what happened, possibly by accident. Before we were actually shown the exhibits that we were supposed to see in the order that they were supposed to be presented, during this deputy medical examiner's testimony, the projector in the courtroom actually flipped through numerous autopsy photos before we were supposed to see that. So imagine, right, this overhead monitor kind of like flipbook style in a matter of seconds going through probably about half a dozen photos. And I'm talking autopsy photos, showing the victim's torso, open chest cavity, extremities, laid out, cleaned off and laid out on a silver exam table. There was an audible gasp. A reporter sitting behind me in the courtroom, you could hear her reacting to this. You could see everybody reacting, I think, very viscerally. But Dr. Grant Ho, the witness on the stand right now, he's going through this methodically, step by step. For him, this is his day-to-day. This is just part of his job, and he's answering the questions that way. There's nothing emotional, nothing grisly or gruesome.
I cannot imagine that being my job, bro.
Makes you think.
You do something like that, or like,
my gosh,
how?
Okay, so today's an important day. There has been so much about evidence about David's alleged illegal.
Like, imagine your whole job is like cutting up dead people. Like, hell no.
Relationship with Celeste. There's been a lot of evidence and testimony regarding the potential cleanup, the dismemberment. When it comes to the actual killing, when it comes to the actual alleged murder, this is what we were waiting for. What did Dr. Grant Ho say about the cause and manner of death of Celeste Rivas Hernandez?
There is a lot of back and forth during this cross-examination now of Dr. Grant Ho, but he repeated findings from the medical examiner's office that have already been published. This was released months ago. We have reported on this, but he walked us through, with the support of visuals this time that we have not previously seen from the autopsy. He walked us through what they already found months ago. They decided the cause and manner of death of 14-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez was homicide, and they attributed her death to multiple penetrating injuries. Here's what's interesting, though. They did not identify what kind of weapon or tool caused those penetrating injuries. And they stopped short of actually calling it a penetrating injury caused by a sharp instrument. So they're not saying that she was definitely stabbed to death. And that's because of the advanced state of decomposition. They simply don't know for sure exactly how or what caused a lot of what they found, which we are looking at right now in the courtroom, documented in these very, very visual exhibits.
Let me tell you why that's so significant.
And that makes everything like way harder to prove. Like, everything.
Our audience should know. One of the special circumstances,
which is so frustrating, because it's like, if like there had to have been someone that knew and just said nothing. Like, truly. Someone. And if they said something, this would have been like found earlier.
Allegations in this case that has been presented by prosecutors is that David Anthony Burke personally used a deadly and dangerous weapon, a sharp instrument, to commit this crime. And yet what you're telling us is this deputy medical examiner can't definitively say that that's the case.
We don't know that for sure. And I think defense attorneys made a point of underscoring that several times. That is one of the elements of this first-degree felony murder charge that is interesting, that is different, right? And if he is convicted, there could be a sharp instrument enhancement. I believe in the state of California that could tack on an additional consecutive year. But those 3 additional special circumstances, that makes this murder case eligible for the death penalty. Here's what else the deputy medical examiner doesn't know for sure. And defense leaned really hard into all of this on cross. They don't know which penetrating injury occurred first. There's one on the victim's abdomen, and there's one on her lateral left chest. So one is associated, possibly.
When they get a second opinion on medical examiner, something seems off. I completely disagree. I don't think anything seems off about the medical examiner. I just think you're a little biased. I think like they can't, the medical examiner's job is not to give any side an edge. He literally is like, this looks like what happened. I can't tell because of the advanced state of decomposition. And if one side does want to counteract with another expert or whatever, I think they can bring one on as a witness. But I don't know exactly how that works. I don't know what the rules are. But most medical examiners are vetted and like made to be unbiased. And if it's like determined that they're not, like the trial will be a mistrial.
With liver damage, the other possibly with rib damage.
Like the body had been decomposed for like 3 months in like 90-degree weather and a moist trunk because it was in bags. And when human bodies are not like solid, like we got fluids in us, and if it's in a bag in heat, it's gonna create like moisture, bubbles and condensation inside of the bag, which is gonna advance the state of decomposition because bacteria loves moisture. Okay. That's why when your skin oily, you got more pimples than when it's dry, okay? It loves moisture, and heat and moisture together, like, would really accelerate the rate of decay. And so months,
and diaphragm damage. Deputy Emmy can't say which one happened first. He can't say definitively whether or not they may have happened seconds apart. He cannot say which one caused her death. He cannot say how long it may have taken Celeste to die from either one of those injuries. There's so much we simply don't know. And that created a gap for one of the defense attorneys to ask something that we have not heard yet in this case. She asked this witness, this deputy medical examiner, if he could rule out that Celeste may have inflicted both of these stab wounds on her own. And he said, based on his findings in this autopsy, that was not something that he could definitively rule out. The reaction in the
so they're going for a self-harm angle. Okay, but regardless, if she offed herself, let's say, like if she ended her own life, there was no reason the dismemberment would be necessary. So like, what are we doing here?
Following that line of questioning, though, I turned around and I could see a couple people, glancing at each other, eyebrows raised. It looked and felt to me like people watching this line of questioning felt like it may have been bordering on the absurd. It may not be something a jury would believe.
Let's map that out for a second. So in other words, and this is based on what we saw this week from the defense, they are
could only opinion they want to get caught about the other stuff. Yeah, but like he's still getting charged with something crazy at that point then. I mean, dismembering a body itself is a crime. And and that's one of the crimes he's being charged with.
Potentially building the argument, if this goes to trial, and correct me if I'm wrong, that Celeste would have come over to his place, something happened, she killed herself or had an overdose, David panicked and tried to get rid of her body. I mean, is that something that you see the building blocks for, even though they've tried to, because remember, one of the most significant things I think the defense has been trying to do is saying, well, all these alleged purchases, the chainsaws, the laundry bags, the body bag, was all after she allegedly died. So it's not like he planned to kill her. Am I understanding that that's maybe the building blocks of where they may go as a potential defense?
Jesse, I don't know if that's where the defense is actively trying to go.
I just think that's like a little too absurd to be believable. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I mean, maybe it could work, but like, that's a bit crazy to me. No, like,
I think this is their opportunity during this preliminary hearing to kind of test out different lines of questioning, right? See what sticks. See where the biggest openings might be for them to just create more gaps in the prosecution's case. I don't believe that line of questioning is going to go anywhere. But here's how they laid it out this morning. Marilyn Bednarski was the one asking Dr. Grant Ho these questions.
I was a prosecution lawyer. Well, they weren't doing a cross. She was asking the medical examiner that. And also they're not, like I said, they're not going to go over everything because they don't want to show their hand. And the defense right now is like they're playing games to see like what absurd line of questioning could like maybe work by gauging the reaction of the courtroom so they can find like an edge.
She wanted,
like, and also the defense doesn't need one strategy to create doubt. I think what this lady is doing is I think she's trying to find any holes she can and just poke as many as she can, because the less stable anything seems, the less likely of a prosecution being a thing. Like, I don't think there's one strategy they're employing currently. Maybe if it goes to trial, they will stick to one. But right now, it's kind of like they're just trying to poke enough holes into it to where someone might be like, this isn't enough to take it to trial. Like, the strategy used at a preliminary hearing is not going to be the same one used at actual trial, because actual trials are more thorough, require more proof, and are much longer. This is just like, is it worth the effort of doing that?
to know first, is it helpful for somebody doing an autopsy to maybe have information about whether the decedent has a mental health history? Is it helpful to know if they are suicidal? Is it helpful to know if they are habitual drug users? So to each of those questions, Dr. Ho answered, potentially. So then she asked him, did you have any conversations with the decedent's relatives to explore those characteristics? He did not. So then she proceeded.
And I also don't think that would be his job, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know exactly.
Ask about the injuries, right? The documented injuries, these penetrating wounds, the disruption to one of her ribs, the damage noted on her liver. And the defense wants to know, can you definitively link those observations that were made during the autopsy to what you see on the overlying skin?
I also think the chances of her like stabbing herself that deep and then being able to do it again on her own and not like passing out due to the pain or the shock is like also kind of insane. I mean, everyone's level of like shock fainting tolerance or whatever is different, but like I just really don't believe that would make sense either. Yo, Rogue, thank you for the 41 months. Thank you.
And do you know exactly how that occurred? Are you able to definitively report that somebody else caused those injuries? And I think the broad answer to all of this is
the only possible status if the brain literally stops you from doing any serious damage. You'd have to be gone to actually go through with it. Yeah, I mean, most self-harm things, it is the same way. Like, yeah. But like, people have done it. I mean, it's not impossible. Like, yes, you're biologically not, but like, it is still in the realm of possibility. And like I said, they're not trying to prove without a reasonable doubt that like he didn't stab her. They're just trying to poke as many holes in it as possible right now.
Advanced state of decomposition precludes a lot of definitive information. The deputy ME simply cannot say how this happened or who did this.
But I also think that's why they're bringing up the drugs, maybe to be like, hey, maybe she was on something and then did this, right? Like, because people on drugs have done insane, like if you're on enough of any substance, like people will like, I mean, there have been stories of people like hey, let's take the substance together as a couple, and then one of them like eats the other person's face or something crazy. So like that also might be why they're bringing it up. I don't know. I like I said, right now I don't think they have like a strategy. I just think they're imploring any like, hey, this could be something else. Hey, this could be something else. Hey, this could be something else. Hey, and that's all they're doing is they're like poking as many holes as possible.
To her. I don't know if this is actually going to end up being a building block for an argument that Celeste killed herself, but it's certainly a line of questioning that I think any sharp defense attorney would explore during this opportunity, during this preliminary hearing that we've been calling kind of a mini bench trial or a rehearsal for trial, if you will.
And I mean, if they're trying to muddy the waters in terms of how long had she been dead for, and you know, they might be suggesting, can you definitively say she died on that night in April? What about this whole back and forth about a gunshot wound?
This was interesting too, because this was new. And Dr. Ho just clarified on the stand before we broke for lunch that his way of saying anything could have happened to inflict what he'd observed on her ribs, damage to one of
He didn't kill her when she was still pregnant. She had an abortion a year prior.
her left ribs. That could have come from anything. He cannot say with certainty that it came from a knife or another sharp instrument. And the reason, again, that they attributed her death to penetrating wounds as opposed to a sharp instrument is because they cannot rule out a possible gunshot wound with an exit wound in her body. They don't know for sure what killed Celeste.
Oh, so they think there might have been a gunshot wound? But like, wouldn't there be some ballistics they would find? See, the problem is like, if you get shot, they said they couldn't rule it out. Did I hear that right?
The reason, again, that they attributed her death to penetrating wounds as opposed to a sharp instrument is because they cannot rule out a possible gunshot wound with an exit wound in her body.
So they thought the wounds could have been gunshots too, I guess. I mean, I think the problem is like I said, the body is so decomposed, they can't really tell, bro. Like the body has been decomposed for so long. Like they're kind of like, the medical examiner has to be very realistic. Like it could have been this, it could have been this, because they're so like, given how decayed it is, the possibilities of what could have happened are so much greater because the way they tell about a lot of this stuff is like how the flesh looks, how it, you know, holds up. But if it's been cooking in a car for months with bacteria, larvae, like her face already had bone, like skeleton show, like it's not like that. If the skin on your face isn't there anymore, like telling the skin that's like a hole where your organs are, it's not going to line up. It's not like it's bones. It's like soft tissue. It depending on how much like liquid or fluid and blood in is it changes shape. Like it's very hard to tell if it's been so decomposed to this extent.
We don't know for sure what killed Celeste.
And
I think any angle to try is she's still a minor and he's still an adult. I mean, yes, but like they're still trying to like disprove the murder at the end of it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Even if they can disprove like one of the 3 charges, like that's better than nothing.
there was also discussion about the chainsaws, right? So in other words, yesterday and the past few days, we know that chainsaws were collected, but as far as we know, they tested negative for blood. There seems to be one chainsaw that may be missing. In terms of a chainsaw potentially being used to inflict these injuries on Celeste, whether it was in the form of, her cause of death, maybe to kill her or to dismember her, what was the discussion of chainsaws today?
So the witness was very careful to answer that line of questioning. He noted, I think, several times that he is not an expert when it comes to tools, power tools used to dismember bodies. He did offer up some general knowledge about what might lead to the types of cuts that he noted on the victim's body. He described it as clean or smooth around the edges. That, though, I think is going to be called into question as well, because the appearance of all of these wounds, right, they have changed post-mortem during decomposition. But he talked about how to cut through soft tissue or organs, you can do that with a scalpel. He talked about how to cut through bone, you might use something like a bone saw. And he said to cut
because
through
bone can
rib,
handle
you would need something
like hundreds to thousands of pounds of pressure.
essentially like hedge cutters. That's what he said on the stand. Still, he cannot definitively identify what was used to sever this victim's limbs from her body.
And to be clear, the prosecution hasn't laid out a specific murder weapon or what happened to a potential murder weapon?
They have not yet. We do know 2 of the chainsaws found in David's garage during a search about a week after the Tesla was found with the victim's remains in the front trunk. We do know those 2 chainsaws tested negative for blood.
What about the insect activity?
That was another detail that I think got a visible reaction in the courtroom this morning. Dr. Ho described the beginning stages of maggots all around the victim's remains when he first got the case, when he was preparing to do the autopsy. I think it was a good morning for the victim's parents, both of her parents, who've been sitting in for most of this preliminary hearing, to not be in the courtroom. I walked past them in the hallway just now when I was exiting for lunch. They are here, they are in the courthouse, but they elected not to sit in there this morning for this testimony. I think that was an understandable move on their part.
Yeah, I mean, that's crazy. I hope this goes to trial. I mean, I don't see why it wouldn't, but also I'm not gonna lie, the knowledge I have of this is like secondhand through the internet. So like, respectfully, I'm an idiot. I might seem smart, I might seem like I know something, but like, I didn't go to school for this. I don't understand the semantics. I don't understand the legal jargon. I don't understand what is required. But in my personal opinion, it should go through. But like, who's to say, you know? Jim, I thought it was a mortician. Well, I'm just saying that because a lot of people were asking me questions about stuff, and it's like, I'm gonna be honest with y'all, I don't fucking know either, bitch. Like, I have the same question. I have the same question. But yeah, regardless of if he gets charged with murder, I think he would probably get charged with the inappropriate relationship with a minor. I just also feel like I don't know if that's harder to prove or not. Because I've heard of cases where it's like, yeah, the texts are sent, but like, we can't prove he's actually the one that sent them because multiple people had access to this phone or this computer in the house. So like, I don't know. Sometimes like I've seen stuff where it's like, I don't really know how they can definitively do it. And other times I've seen stuff that contradicts previous stuff I've seen. Like, I don't really know exactly what the criteria is for various things. And sometimes states have different laws. But I just think my number one question for this is, how exactly did no one around him not know about this? 42 evidence to lock him up. Yeah, they have 42 hours of evidence, but they need to prove that he was the one that did the murder, right? Like, it's not as like, it might seem like, yeah, it's your car, yeah, it's your house, but like, how many people had access to the car? How many people had access to the house? Like, they could easily like frame that he didn't do it. Like, they need to prove that he was the one that committed the murder. 100%. Like, although that's the thing that can be frustrating, I guess, about like understanding trials. Like, sometimes it seems very obvious. Like, there's A, B, C, D, E. Like, 1 + 1 = 2. But like, if you can't explain how 1 + 1 = 2, then 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2 in the court of law. That's the problem. Like, it can look obvious. It can look obvious to everyone else. But if you can't prove how 1 + 1 = 2, 1 + 1 does not equal 2. Right? That's how it works. Like, it might seem brain dead easy to us. Like, well, duh, your car, you're this, you're that. But like, you need to prove how functionally 1 + 1 = 2. And if you can't do that in the court of law, that means 1 + 1 no longer equals 2. That's the problem. And the reason they do that is so people don't get framed for stuff. It's like, it's thorough so that, like, it might seem like it benefits criminals, but like also it benefits innocent people too. Like, it has to be thorough so that like there can't be any slip ups. Framing is a very valid angle. Yeah, like, exactly. That's the thing. Like, they need reason, like without a reasonable doubt proof. So for the prelim, they don't. They need like more than 50. Like, they need above 50%. Like, it needs to be like, okay, there's enough probable cause. But in the actual trial, they need, like, that's how Diddy got off with so much stuff. Like, I mean, to everyone else, it was like, well, duh. But like, you need to be able to prove the well, duh. You know what I'm saying? I mean, Diddy also had insane lawyers too, but like, the insane lawyers are better at making regular people think 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2 when it's very obvious. Mom took the money so Celeste's family couldn't take it. You know? I don't know. That's why, like, sometimes, like, yeah, it seems very obvious, or it's like, well, I don't know how this isn't a thing, but they need proof. They need proof. And I think it's like the system is, I think it being more strict to prove is better than less, to be honest. Because how would you feel if you got framed for a crime, bro? You know what I'm saying? Also, if it was easier to frame people for crimes, then more criminals would get away with stuff anyways, because they would just frame people more often. So like, it also is like a double-edged sword where like, even if they made the barrier of proof lower, someone that's like really good at murdering people or committing these types of crimes can then set a secondary target of who did the thing. Or like, be like, it's them that did it. And if since there's less proof required to prove it's person B, then now person B's taking the sentence for person A. You know? But yeah, that's it on the David stuff. Damn, that was a lot, bro. Criminals will adapt to my rights, so it's better be safer. Exactly. 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 I was thinking about want to stop every morning under the sun of this video. Yeah, I mean, maybe that might be a good idea. I'll do like a little bit right now. Hello. I want to make a warning before this video starts. This case covers a lot of very graphic details of the state of Celeste Rivas and how she was murdered, or the state of the body or decomposition. So if that sort of stuff is hard for you to stomach, I recommend you skip this video, because it does go into very specific detail on how exactly these things occurred as a part of the evidence. So yeah, feel free to, you know, take care of yourself. I'll see you in the next one. If you don't want to view this sort of stuff. Watching the video making live. Yeah, this is normally how I do it. Yeah. I hope he gets locked up indefinitely. All right, I'm gonna go, guys. I would yap a little bit longer, but I don't feel very good today. Like I almost didn't stream. I'm surprised I was even able to to thug this one out. Not gonna lie. But I don't want to do that death penalty. I hope he gets solitary confinement and loses his mind. You can say I'm awful. Great. Am I more awful for saying that, or is he more awful for dismembering and killing a 13-year-old that he groomed since she was 11? Exactly. Shut up, stupid. And that way in solitary, he can't bother anyone else either. But yeah, if you guys missed the rest of the VOD, if you want to watch the full thing, I mean, if you're a channel member, you can, or you can wait for the video to come out. It'll probably be out in like a day or two. I mean, normally I would pump this out like by tomorrow, but this is so much that I covered. It's gonna take a little bit. Yeah, if you want the live VOD, go. You can be a channel member. If not, you can just wait for the video to come out if you missed it. But I hope you have a good one. Thank y'all for watching. And I will see you guys mañana. I think I'm gonna make a schedule this week for my Twitch viewers. Because YouTube, I really only stream when I have like YouTube content I'm doing, you know. But yeah. Yeah, thank y'all. Bye bye. Bye 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 bye. I remember even a little sneak peek. When I have the schedule, I'll show it on stream. Just ask me. Just ask me.